Hello, hello, everybody. How are you guys doing? Please let me know in the comments where you are tuning in from, what county, what country, what dominion, so that I may shout you guys out, or rather shout out your cities and towns and whatnot. And I'll give you a second because it takes, there's a short delay in the relay, but thank you all for tuning in. We've got over 1,000 people watching just on YouTube alone. But only 500 likes. So guys, please make sure you've hit the like button, because that means half of you have not clicked the button, and it helps a lot. You know, for a while now, they've been trying to suppress news about Syria, and you know, they've always made it difficult. So anything with Syria in the video, in the title, you know, it doesn't fit their narrative, does it? So they automatically start suppressing it. And by liking, by commenting, you help fight against that. You help me fight against that. We've got people tuning in from Nepal, from Pakistan, from Tennessee, from Copenhagen, from Liverpool, from Boston, London, Geneva, Germany, Mexico, Malaysia, Quebec, Nebraska, New Jersey, Sydney, Egypt. You know, actually, I should probably just like start randomly, you know, throwing cities out there, and we'll probably match in the comment section. We've got California, we've got Giza in Egypt, Norway, we've got Boston, we've got Algeria, Japan, Malaysia, Amman, Jordan, Germany, France, Pakistan, Spain, you name it. You name it, it's here. So we've got 700 likes. There's still 300 of you that haven't hit the like button, okay? Please make sure you have. Please press it. It helps a lot. And again, I like to dive right in, but again, a word of caution. I'm still under investigation for terrorism. Like, they're actually still investigating me for terrorism because of my work as a journalist, right? Not in Syria, no, in Britain, in democratic Britain. So, you know, it's impeded my work a lot, and I depend on you guys as an independent journalist now more than ever. So if you are able to donate to support my work, please do. You can do it on PayPal, on Rumble, on Patreon. All the links are below. GoFundMe. But let's dive right in, okay? I want to give you a couple of updates about what's happening inside of Syria, or what used to be Syria, what used to be called Syria. Where to begin, honestly? There's so much. Give me a second. Yeah, I suppose we can start with this performance, because that's really what it is. This is a performance that we've got over here. All right, can you guys see this on the screen? Yeah, there we go. You can see that. Okay, you ready? Get ready, huh? Get ready. Okay, so right off the bat, before we begin, I'm going to make this very clear, because some people, well, they quite frankly, they lack the mental faculties to grasp nuanced arguments. So let's say this from the beginning. Yes, people used to get tortured under Bashar al-Assad's government, and they used to get tortured in Saydnaya prison. That's not sarcasm. It's not a joke. It's true. It's true. People will get tortured. This is reality. You know, there's no need for people to fabricate propaganda about that. But unfortunately, CNN are doing that. You know what I mean? Like, there's no need to exaggerate it. You could just report on the torture as it happened. But for some reason, even after the guy is gone, they're still churning out propaganda. And they brought none other than Clarissa Ward, right? So you've seen her doing this stuff before in Syria as well, and I'll go back to her greatest hits in a moment. But I just want to show you this video that they put out, which again is so completely unnecessary. You could just report about the things that actually happen without resorting to this. Okay, so just watch the video. It's really, I mean,
I can't tell though. It might just be a blanket, but it's the only cell that's locked.
Is he gonna shoot it?
The guard makes us turn the camera off while he shoots the lock off the cell door. We go in to get a closer look. It's still not clear if there is something under the blanket.
Oh, it moved. Is there someone there? I thought I saw it move. Is someone there? Or is it just a blanket? I don't know.
I think it's someone.
Hello?
Okay, let's just go.
Yeah. Oh.
civilian, he says. I'm a civilian. He tells the fighter he's from the city of Homs and has been in the cell for 3 months.
Okay, you're okay. You're okay. You're okay. You're okay.
He clutches my arm tightly with both hands.
Okay. Does anyone have any water? Water. My. Okay, it's water. It's water.
We're not done, by the way, but it's not looking very convincing, is it? You know, if you're someone who's actually tortured, and again, this is not something that's, let's remember exactly who was doing the torturing. A lot of the torture in Syria was being done by the CIA, by the way, which the fact that they had that deal is kind of despicable on Syria's behalf, regardless, right? Like, it doesn't make it okay, and they use that as a legal loophole. But regardless, you know, it wasn't just the CIA. They've got torture everywhere, so let's not act like Syria is the most egregious of all the actors in the world. It's not, but it did happen. And my point is that if you have been tortured in Syria and you're watching this, it's like, you know, I'd feel like you're making fun of me, honestly. If I were that person, do you understand what I mean? It's like, what is the performance for? You could just interview someone who's had that happen to them. You don't have to go through the whole. I mean, look at this. You know, like, oh, is someone there? Like some. You know, like when they're filming some horrible B horror movie, and they're going down like some staircase, and is somebody there? I mean, come on, really? Yeah, obviously someone is there. You can tell they're sleeping. I mean, what is this like? And then the way he gets up, and he's just like immediately with the hands up. You know, one thesis that I've heard put forward is that perhaps this guy used to work in the prison and is pretending to be a prisoner, and so maybe he was trying to pretend he's asleep. I don't know. I don't know. That's the problem with this, is that it looks so staged that we have to ask a million different questions. And it's unnecessary. But, you know, and just the way that they speak is like, yes, it's water. It's water. Well, obviously it's bloody water. You said that.
Okay. Okay. Okay, you're okay. You're okay. You're okay.
You're okay. You're okay. Okay, fine. I get she's trying to comfort him. And then they go outside, and it just continues.
After 3 months in a windowless cell, he can finally see the sky.
So he's saying finally, you know, he's saying those light, and the other guy's telling him, intihar, you know, you're free. Honestly, man, fine, that's normal. That's normal reaction. I'm not talking about that. But the way he looks, you're telling me he's been in there for 3 months. 3 months. The guy just doesn't look like he's been in there for 3 months. I mean, look at his nails, first of all. Like, this guy has manicured nails. And you're telling me he's in a torture cell. It's not just a cell. Like, we're supposed to... They're telling us that this is, like, one of the worst dungeons in Syria, right? So, it doesn't match. It doesn't add up. And once again, I don't understand the need to do this. And it's not the first time that Clarissa Ward, this woman specifically, does something like this, right? She loves these dramatic productions. Do you remember when she was, look at this, she was diving on the floor, on the ground, and saying, oh my God, there are, when was this? This is a few months ago, I think, in Palestine, right? And you've got people casually walking by next to her. It's the same reporter, right, for CNN. You've got people casually walking on the street, and she's saying, oh my God, it's a missile attack, and she dives on the floor, and yet other people are walking around normally. Like, it's so badly done. It's like such a cheap production, you know, as long as it fits the CNN narrative. And again, not the first time. So before this, she was in Syria a couple of years ago. Okay. Let me show you this. I'm sure you all remember this one. Okay. This is probably her most famous appearance, or her most
And there's definitely something that stings. These backpacks.
Is that Clarissa Ward? People are saying it's Clarissa Ward, but now that I'm looking at it, it doesn't look like her, honestly. I can't tell, but it's still CNN, you know, you get the point. It's still in Syria, it's still CNN, okay? and this was supposed to be evidence of a chemical weapon attack. Okay, do you know what a chemical weapon is? Like, that stuff is well, I mean, depending on what it is, if it's mustard gas or anthrax or it's going to kill you. It's going to kill you. You don't go and sniff it for a little sniff test. It's not a fart or something. It will kill you. So why would you get near it and then sniff a backpack? I mean, do you understand how ridiculous this is? Because that's what they were alleging. They weren't saying, Bashar al-Assad dropped down from a helicopter and sprayed people with chlor. No. They were saying this was a deadly chemical attack. And she just bends over and starts sniffing the backpack. And he's also handling it with no gloves. Like, yeah, you just casually touch chemical weapons. No, it's just a weapon of mass destruction. So do you see how ridiculous this whole CNN reporting and narrative has been in Syria for a very long time? And once again, the chemical weapon stuff we know is BS, okay? Like, I've reported on that. We have the WikiLeaks documents. That's definitely a bunch of bollocks. But the torture stuff is not. People were tortured in Syria. There's no need to go and start making up evidence of torture or trying to pull on people's heartstrings by filming a guy who's found in the dungeon. By the way, in Sednaya prison, so that's allegedly where they filmed this propaganda piece, yeah? Over here. People searched that dungeon. They searched that whole prison. They went through it multiple times. They searched every inch of it. There's nobody left in there. And you notice when they say the guard is about to shoot the lock off of the door, but he told us to turn the camera off. Why would you have to turn the camera off when you're shooting the lock off of a door? If anything, you would perhaps turn it off when you've discovered that there's a prisoner who's been there for 3 months and who is in no condition to be filmed like some, lab rat or some kind of, freak, right? That you could understand. Like, they just don't want a camera in their face because they've been tortured. But instead, the only room is when he allegedly shoots the lock off of the door. I mean, why would you hide that? Isn't that heroic? Look at me, like I'm freeing someone from a torture dungeon. Why would you not want them to film that? That doesn't make any sense, first of all. But in any case, you don't need to do this, and yet they go and do it. And it's just, again, this whole problem with the Syrian opposition, with the line on Syria. It's like they got the country, okay? They got power at all, and they did it at the expense of the whole country. I mean, really at the expense of everybody, okay? They're so power hungry, they got the goddamn thing, and they're still going. They were saying the other day that in this dungeon in Syria, you had 150,000 people in there. There's no prison in the world that can fit 150,000 people. That's larger than a football stadium inside of one facility. Do you understand the amount of ventilation? Forget the food. Do you understand the amount of electricity and ventilation that you would need to have 150,000 people under the ground in a torture dungeon? I mean, it's just ludicrous. It's like when the Israelis say, well, there's an underground James Bond villain facility at Al-Shifa Hospital. Or Bin Laden's lair. You remember, we talked about this last time. You remember that graphic they published? I can't remember where they published it. I think it might have been actually on CNN, ironically. It literally, I have a book. I have like a book from when I was a boy with all these like layers, from the James Bond villains. It looks like someone opened that book and just copied it out of there and said, this is what Saddam Hussein I think it was Bin Laden has under the ground. And it's a drawing. It's just a bloody illustration, and they expect you to believe it. And so they keep doing these same things: weapons of mass destruction, massive underground facilities that we can't show you, but we just so happen to have 3D renders of. I mean, and people still buy this. They still eat it and gobble it up. They still do. It's quite bizarre. It's quite bizarre. And I just don't understand why the first thing you would do with someone who's been in a cell, who's allegedly been tortured for 3 months, is sit the guy down for an interview. Who has the energy? Forget torture, by the way. Like, let's say he was just there without being tortured, which in and of itself is it's awful. It's awful to put someone in those conditions for 3 months. But even then, you would not take this person and say, oh yeah, do you want to do an interview? You rush him to a bloody hospital. You take them to a bloody hospital. You give them medical attention first, and then you worry about interviewing them. You don't just, harass them inside of a hovel as soon as you discover them. So a lot of this doesn't make any sense, because that's what they do. Look, they just sit him down, and it's interview time,
انت حر الله ضو انت حر الله ضو روح روح يا الله حد اعصابك
My God, the light, he says. Oh God, there is light. My God, there is light.
ولا طيران الحمد لله روح
Okay.
خليكم معي
You're okay.
Stay with me. Stay with me, he repeats again and again.
خليكم معي خليكم معي إلى 3 شهور
For 3 months, I didn't know anything
بعرف
about
شو يعني
my
ولادك، ما
family.
بعرف
He
شو يعني
says.
أهلك.
I didn't hear anything about my children.
ما بعرف شو يعني ولادي والله ما بعرف شو يعني أهلي
The fighter hands him something to eat.
لا
He barely lifted to his mouth.
افتحها مجاهد
اوكي
حط الثاني فوق
But his body can't handle it.
Okay, you're okay.
His captors fled during the fall of Damascus, leaving him with no food or
I'm sorry, but that's way too much touching, and this is very, very, very impermissible and illegal in today's Syria. And if you think I'm joking, wait till I show you the next segment. But I think you get the idea. I think you get the point. There's really no need for all this, but given the backpack sniffing and smelling that we had, back in the day. It's all manufacturing consent, right? It's all manufacturing consent. So, and what's sad is that, like I was saying, you got people who've been tortured, but instead of fighting Israel, they were using the prisons as an excuse to say, well, there's no time to fight Israel right now because, we have to empty the prisons. Now, you ask yourself, you ask yourself if that makes any sense, and I'll defer judgment to you. Okay, I'll let you decide if that makes any sense, because that's what a lot of people who supported the revolution were saying, right? And once again, I don't understand how they searched every single inch of Saydnaya prison, and the only one that that they forgot about someone, and they get found by CNN. Doesn't that seem weird to you? Everybody was freed, but at this point, everybody was liberated. How is it that there's one person they missed and then CNN finds them out of all the people? I mean, come on, this is ridiculous. And another thing that needs to be said, listen to me very well. What happened is that they liberated all of the prisons, all of the prisoners in all of the prisons. Okay, so I'm not talking about this one specifically, Saydnaya. I'm speaking in general. What this new government regime, rebels, whatever you want to call them, the usurpers did is they emptied all of the prisons. Now, you can't tell me that every single one of those people was a political prisoner. Because what I'm saying is, yes, of course, political prisoners should be released. No one who is innocent of a crime should be in those jails, obviously, in any jail, never mind tortured, right? Political prisoners, they should all be freed. Yes. No one is disagreeing. But what about rapists, for example? What if you let a rapist out without a proper judicial review? What about if you let a serial killer out without proper judicial review? You're telling me that we're getting rid of Bashar al-Assad, who is a big baddie dictator, a boogeyman, and we're replacing that with democracy, right? And in a democracy, you have, a judiciary, you have due process. The courts do their thing. You allow the judges, the lawyers, you allow simply put the judiciary as an organ of the state, to just do its job. But you let out everybody without even reviewing their cases. Just, come on, here's just get out of the jail, even if it includes mass murderers or includes war criminals. That doesn't make sense to me. Do you understand? There's no order in this whole process. That's not how you build a country. That's how you bring on chaos, right? So yes, again, no one should be tortured. No one is debating that. We all agree no one should be tortured. We all agree political prisoners shouldn't be in prison. No one's debating that. The problem is that what about actual legitimate criminals that, were in prison for murder, rape, for theft? I don't know. Those people, are you sure that you should just be handing them the keys and then saying, walk out back into society? I'm talking about just in a normal prison. No one is saying they should be tortured. Do you get what I'm saying? There is no judicial process here. And this shows you already that what these people are promising isn't very promising, pun intended. Okay, it's not looking good. It's disorderly, it's chaotic, and it's not how you build a functioning state. This is only going to lead to chaos. Do you grasp what I'm trying to say? And not to mention the fact that if you're saying, okay, Bashar al-Assad is a butcher, he's got to go, and now you got rid of him. Well, what about Jolani? Is he not a butcher? What about his henchmen? What about all the people in Hayat Tahrir al-Sham? Did they not terrorize Syrians? And then you're going to say, well, we needed violence to get rid of the violent regime. I'm not talking about that. I'm asking again, are these people in Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, in al-Nusra Front, in Al-Qaeda, are they not butchers as well? Of course they are. Did they not terrorize Syrians as well? Of course they did. Why are you overlooking their crimes? Why are you putting violent people in power to get rid of a violent man in power? How does this make sense? This is a brazen, ridiculous contradiction. You want to build a new country? You don't need those people. Okay, you got rid of Bashar al-Assad. Why? You don't need Al-Qaeda to be in charge now and to be heading a transitional government, do you? You don't need those violent people to have any post or position of power, do you? You don't actually need them. But for some reason, no one seems to see the contradiction in all this. Very weird, right? Here, I'll show you another masterpiece that came out. This is not CNN, but it speaks for itself.
مرحبا، انت شو اسمك حبيبي؟
عمر.
شو عم تساوي هون؟
عم دور على بابا.
بابا هون حدا قال لك انه هون بصيدنايا؟
ايه، مدور عليه انا وعمامي. ايه.
من ايمت ما شفته لبابا؟
صار لي من 14 سنة.
قديش عمرك انت؟
أنا 10 سنين.
Okay, hold on. What? So they're talking about Saydnaya prison. Okay, that's again the notorious dungeon. What did he just say?
شو عم تساوي هون؟
عم دور على بابا.
بابا هون حدا قال لك انه هون بصيدنايا؟
ايه، مدور عليه انا وعمامي. ايه.
من ايمت ما شفته لبابا؟
صار لي من 14 سنة.
قديش عمرك انت؟
أنا 10 سنين.
So he's 10 years old and he's been looking for his father since he was -4. Okay, look, I mean, the guy's a kid, like maybe he just miscounted, but it's like all this exaggeration that's coming out. When they were saying 150,000 people, it turns out it was 4,300, I think. 4,300, I think, was the number of people that were in the jail. Why do you have to say 150,000? Like, if it's like you're taking attention away from the actual, the actual issue, right? Anyway, I think it speaks for itself, and I think the point is well taken. And the problem now is that, listen, instead of focusing on building a better country, all they're doing is they're just acting like plungers. Oh, but Assad did this and Assad did that. You got rid of the guy. He's gone. He's in Moscow. Can we move on now? Can we get to that part with the milk and honey, of all the good things you wanted to massacre half the country for and caused half the population to be displaced? Can we fucking get to that? Is that okay with you now? No. We got to inflate numbers with Saydnaya. We got to do this and that. It never ends because they're not interested in actually doing anything for Syrians. They're interested in just having power. It's just about the power grab. Once they got the power, they don't actually have to go and do anything else. You understand? So that's it. They've got it, and now they're just gonna replace the old regime, as they like to call it, every single day with whatever brand of authoritarianism it is that they have, which I'm going to explain in a second when we get to that. And let me point out another thing. Because when they keep saying, there was torture, he's a butcher, the murderous regime, all these things, why don't they ever say these things about Egypt? Are you going to sit there and tell me Egypt do not have mukhabarat? They don't have, the security services in Egypt torturing people? You remember that guy from the State Department who was harassing a hot dog vendor or a street vendor in Washington? I don't know, or was it New York? And then he's telling him, I'm going to get my friends in Egypt to pull out your fingernails. Because that wasn't an empty threat. It's because the Americans run the Egyptian mukhabarat. But torture in Egypt is fine. The Egyptian dungeons are fine. Why? Because Egypt plays nice with Israel. That's why. You understand? The dungeons in Jordan, those dungeons are fine. They're beautiful because Jordan has relations with Israel. Jordan is not a threat to Israel or a threat to America. Jordan is a nice, submissive doormat. You understand? Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, you're telling me these countries are shining democracies? They don't torture people? No one is saying torture is good. I'm trying to show you that when you're an American or Israeli ally and you torture people, suddenly CNN are not there to film it. Suddenly Amnesty International don't have any reports to write about you. Suddenly you're not front page news in the New York Times. All of a sudden, human rights for dissidents in those countries, oh, we just look the other way. What does that tell you? That tells you that when they talk about Syria, they don't actually care about Syrians. They don't actually care about human rights. And they're probably lying to a certain extent or exaggerating to a certain extent. That means use your critical thinking skills instead of just swallowing everything the mainstream media tell you. Thank you. Good night. I'm not actually going anywhere. We're moving on to the next segment. That's all. No, but seriously, it's like, I'm getting tired of this. Like, you're going to tell me Joe Biden is not a butcher? Are you serious? Joe Biden's not a butcher. George Bush is not a butcher. Do you ever hear anybody call him a butcher? Do you ever hear them call the American army, the US army, the Biden regime forces? Wait, when has anyone on television ever said the US army are the George Bush regime forces? Never. You know why? Because it sounds fucking stupid. It sounds childish and dumb. And if you're going to sit there and tell me that Syria had a regime, but the United States doesn't have a regime, I mean, you're out of your mind. You are a lunatic or a liar. The US is the quintessential regime, right? That does not change ever, no matter what kind of election they put in your face. You got local elections. You can go down to from the county level all the way to the country, to the national presidential elections. Ain't nothing changing. Nothing. It's the most regime of all regimes. All right. It's you want to talk about ruling with an iron hand. With an iron fist, excuse me. Just look no further than the United States, or the UK, actually, for that matter, or the UK. God, you want to talk about regimes that being murderers and tyrants? You either apply that term across the board to people who deserve it, or shut the fuck up. Seriously, okay? It's very simple. Either apply it to everybody who deserves it, or just don't say it, because you look stupid and biased, and you've been drinking that State Department Kool-Aid. You've been drinking that FCDO Kool-Aid. They've rotted your brain. It's turned to mush. They've colonized your mind. You're spouting horse manure and verbal diarrhea. How can you call Bashar al-Assad a butcher, but you don't call Joe Biden and Netanyahu butchers and tyrants? They don't have murderous regimes. What the fuck are you smoking? Anyway, man, let's go to the next one. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to the real reason. Let's go to the real reason of why they destroyed Syria, okay? What they're never going to show you, what they're never going to tell you, what they're never going to reveal to you or disclose. Yeah, you guys see that? All right, let's begin. I want to talk about the real reason that there was a so-called revolution that just took place in Syria, because a lot of people have, well, they don't have a very effective or good memory, do they? Right? Their memory has failed them. So we're gonna go straight back to the source. Okay? Do you guys remember what happened in 2009? You remember what happened in 2009? And why that relates to Syria? So in 2009, Qatar and Turkey wanted a pipeline. But the problem is this gas pipeline would only work out if it would run through Syria. Okay? It had to go through Syria. Why? Because the shorter the pipeline is, obviously the less it costs, right? You reduce the number of fixed costs, and every pipeline that's under 2,000 kilometers is just going to be exponentially, more advantageous money-wise, and it's going to expedite things, and it's just a no-brainer. You know, you always want to keep it under 2,000 kilometers. And by going through Syria, it would have been 1,500 kilometers, right? Now look at this. Just 2 days ago, the energy minister of Turkey digs up the old pipeline idea, which Assad said no to in 2009. So according to the Turkish energy minister, a natural gas pipeline project between Turkey and Qatar could be resumed following Bashar al-Assad's fall. The pipeline, which would pass through Syrian territory, was rejected by Bashar al-Assad in 2009. The 1,500 kilometer long pipeline would transport gas. The 1,500 kilometer long pipeline would transport gas from Qatar to Saudi Arabia, into Jordan, into Syria, to Turkey, and then finally on to Europe, which has been struggling. Europe has been struggling to adequately replace Russian gas since the Ukraine war. Not only that, but of course, you'll recall that Iran is back under sanctions now since several years after Trump pulled out of the nuclear deal, right? So 2015, 2016, they signed the nuclear deal in Vienna. Iran was able to bring in foreign companies, attract foreign investment, export its oil, its gas, and then Donald Trump pulled the plug, and now Iran's been under sanctions for 3 years, right? So its gas can't get to Europe. Russia's gas can't get to Europe. Well, who's left? Who is left? Well, it just so happens that Israel it fancies itself as an energy partner of Europe. And you remember Ursula von der Leyen. I'm trying to cuss less. She went to Egypt and announced this gas deal, right? Now, where the hell is Israel going to get gas from, right? How could Israel be a major energy exporter? Where does he get this from? Well, you remember Netanyahu talking about the new Middle East. It's not just about this economic corridor. It's not only about that. When he talks about a new Middle East, that economic corridor includes all of this lovely, lovely gas that just so happens to be sitting in the Mediterranean Sea on the Leviathan. So look, this is the Levant Basin, okay? The Levant Basin is this entire area, but specifically the Leviathan gas field has the largest amount of gas inside of the Levant Basin. So you've got all that lovely gas sitting right there, ripe for the taking. Okay, we are talking about enormous amounts of gas wealth they haven't even begun to extract these things because the whole region has been at war because of America, because of Britain, because of the West, and because of Israel, because they won't leave people alone. So you remember about 2 years ago, Israel tried to steal the gas inside of the Karish gas fields, which is just off the coast of Lebanon, and they were so bent and intent on stealing the gas and just, getting out of there as quickly as possible, like a thief inside of a diamond shop or something. They even brought a special kind of vessel that can extract and process the stuff on the spot, right? So that didn't work out. And then they had to get Amos Hochstein, Biden's special envoy, to calm things down. And by the way, who just negotiated that ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel? The same guy. So basically, he settled this maritime border dispute between Lebanon and Israel, which, of course, relates entirely to who gets to have the gas, right? Because if your border ends here and it's got the gas fuel inside of it, well, guess what? You've just inherited, right, a lot of money, or of course, God promised it to you, right? If you happen to be Jewish. So this is what we're talking about, but still, that is really the largest section of it. And Israel has been systematically making sure that no one can extract this gas but them. So they've been bombing Latakia port, not just in the last couple of days, but they've done it several times in the last 10 years. The Beirut port mysteriously exploded. I'm willing to bet that Israel was behind that. Of course, there's, incompetence and corruption to a certain degree in every scenario, but the question is who is exploiting the corruption and the incompetence in order to do that? This is the question, right? So Beirut port out of action, Latakia port out of action, all of Syria now is out of action. And then, of course, Gaza out of action. What does that leave? Well, it just leaves the Israelis. It just leaves them with the infrastructure and the stability that required, needed in order to extract this gas, to process it, to ship it off, and on and on. But it's not just that. It's not just about the gas. So just again to recap, okay, we're talking about using Syria as a transit, as a conduit to move gas from Qatar to Turkey, okay? So now they're going to do that. In addition to that, they're going to steal Syria's own gas and Lebanon's gas and Gaza and Palestine's gas, okay? So that's two boxes that they've now ticked. So Qatar and Turkey profit from the first one. Israel profits from the second, as do, of course, the European countries that need this gas because they sanctioned Russia and they sanctioned Iran. And, of course, the United States itself is busy stealing the oil inside of Syria, in the Omar oil fields and in Hasaka and Deir ez-Zor, everything that's to the east of the Euphrates River. I mean, what moron can sit there and tell you that the whole Syrian issue, it's about, this dictator and people just overthrew him and that's it? How can you ignore your own country's oil and gas wealth in such a manner when everyone is openly saying, we want it, we want to steal it from you? Did Israel not bring the goddamn ship? Did Israel not bomb the ports? Did Israel not make sure that Syria, that Lebanon, that Palestine become, I don't like to use the term failed states, but sabotaged states? Is America not stealing the oil right now? Did Qatar and Turkey not plan this in 2009? Did the Turkish energy minister not just say 3 days ago he wants the pipeline? How blind can you be? How can you just sit there and say, oh, it's about democracy? Shove it up your ass, you idiot. You can't have democracy when you don't have sovereignty and you don't have natural resources and you got no wealth. You're not going to have anything. Sovereignty comes first. That's how you get access to your resources. That's how you can build a democracy. That's how you do everything. It's the foundation of everything. But some morons think that, they can just allow Turkey to come in, take Aleppo. Turkey is a benevolent and has nothing but the best of intentions, of course, And Israel, which wants to build greater Israel and steal more and more land, they have nothing but the best of intentions. And the Americans, and Britain and France and the EU and Saudi Arabia and on and on and on. I mean, half the bloody planet, right? If half the planet have to get rid of your leader, doesn't really look like a revolution. Looks more like a coup. Looks more like a hostile takeover. Looks more like predatory corporations trying to steal your bloody resources. Doesn't it? And not to mention China. Oh, yes. Anyone, Syrians who know their history, who should know their history, God damn it, would know that Palmyra, Aleppo, these are one of the most important spots. These are some of the most important spots on the ancient Silk Road. China is reviving the ancient Silk Road. It's called the New Silk Road, the Belt and Road Initiative. All of these things are going to involve Syria. Not only because Syria used to be part of the old network, but because Syria has access to the Mediterranean Sea. Syria would give not just itself, of course, but the rest of the members, the rest of the participants, the rest of the countries and businesses and corporations that will all take part in this massive project of the New Silk Road, access to the Mediterranean Sea. It's the gateway. Okay, once again, we have to pull up the maps because people just have an aversion for some reason to maps. Look, you want to get to the coast, you've got to go through Syria. Here, I don't know why it's switching to Arabic all of a sudden, but I've got a map of the ancient Silk Road, all right? you see what I'm talking about? You see what I'm talking about? You have to go there. And of course, the Americans for a long time Why have they been in this area specifically? It's not just because of the oil. It's not just because of the crops, but they've been trying to cut Iraq off from Syria. So just in case they weren't able to take over Syria, at least they sabotage the new Silk Road either way, right? Either way. Because if the Americans are blocking the railways and the railroads and the routes from entering Syria in the first place from Iraq, well then, you know, it's the same thing as if you'd taken over Syria itself. You sabotaged that gateway to the Mediterranean Sea. And of course, the Iraqis and Iranians finalized a railway deal not even a year ago, less than a year ago. As a matter of fact, I think it was November of last year, might have been. But the point is that everything was set into motion, especially after the war in Ukraine began, right? We saw BRICS growing, and with it, of course, the Belt and Road Initiative and more countries signing up for the new Silk Road. I think you've got over 125 countries, right? Absolutely enormous. And the problem now is that this is going to have terrible, terrible long-term consequences for all the global south, not just Syria, but for the entirety of the global south. They will suffer because of this. And Lebanon and Palestine are equally occupied and equally in trouble. I mean, the Lebanese army is basically funded and controlled to a certain extent far too much by the Americans. Lebanon itself is infiltrated and controlled to a large extent by foreigners, by the Americans, and Palestine is Gaza. Just look at Gaza; it's gone, right? So the Israelis and Americans together have consolidated their stranglehold, their grip on the Levant and particularly the Mediterranean coast. They have made sure that their economic interests with their economic corridor that goes from India, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, and then on to Europe is guaranteed. They have made sure that the pipeline from Qatar to Turkey is guaranteed. They've made sure that they can steal Syria's gas, Lebanon's gas, Palestine's gas, and no one is going to say or do a thing. Do you see how massive this is? And people still want to sit there and tell you, yeah, but democracy, these people are lunatics. And as a matter of fact, it's insulting. It's insulting to have so much wealth in your hands and to spit on it and take people and yourself for such a fool and to pretend like Syria is just an island in space. It's not. It's got tons of resources. It's in a strategic position and it has a massive role to play in things to come. And by spitting on that and trying to make it about one guy who isn't even in the bloody country anymore, it is really an insult to people's intelligence. And frankly, it's just a cell phone, isn't it? So here's the article, by the way. I mean, look, they're openly talking about this. This is from 10th of December. Natural gas pipeline could be revived. They didn't even wait a week. These vultures. I mean, it's really, they're literally vultures. They see you dying and they're like circling overhead, getting ready for their meal. They're so disgusting, really. Like, all they can think about is money. These corporations, Shell, Total, all of them, they're all involved in this. And these governments have been planning this for a long time. It wasn't just about resistance to Zionism. There's also massive economic incentive. All right. And now what you see, Jolani himself, right, Mr. Head Chopper Supreme, driving, not driving around, but himself driving the chief of Turkish intelligence in downtown Damascus. I mean, why not just shine his shoes while you're at it and, kiss his backside? I think driving is far too, it's not cordial enough, is it? Yeah, you can hear him saying in Arabic, "Hu amisu." He's driving. He's driving the car. Right, and here they are also driving through Rasul Hamidiyah. So that's what's going on. And then they took him to pray in the Umayyad mosque. Okay. So that's the head of Turkish intelligence. It's called MIT. That's the acronym. And they took him to pray inside of the mosque, right? To kind of, it's very symbolic. It's very symbolic. Keep in mind, it goes to show you who is behind Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or as they should be always called, Al-Qaeda. It goes to show you that they're very shameless about it as well. They didn't even wait a week to announce the plans about the pipeline. They didn't even send Erdogan. They send the head of the intelligence, which goes. It shows you that this whole thing has been orchestrated by spooks and run by spooks. Why would you send the head of intelligence? Isn't that weird? Think about that for a second. Like, why not send the ambassador? Well, there haven't been ties, but you could put. Obviously, they're going to be readjusting the foreign ministry soon. You could appoint an ambassador, right? Couldn't you? You could send a chargé d'affaires instead of the ambassador, because there's probably most certainly a chargé d'affaires for Turkey in Damascus still present. You could send Erdogan himself. You could send anyone else. Why would you send the head of intelligence? It goes to show you that this whole thing is an operation run by gangsters, by spooks, by people who lie and kill for a living. I mean, what else do you want to call them? So it's very, very, and it's, of course, it's meant to be, insulting. They want to rub our faces in it and say, look, see, Turkey's in charge. Turkey's running things. Erdogan, as a matter of fact, even went on television, and he's bragging about occupying Syrian cities like Idlib. Well, they already did, but he's adding Aleppo to that list, Damascus, Raqqa, and saying they will become provinces in addition to what they already occupy. I mean,
Türkiye'nin hemen dibinde kritik gelişmeler yaşanıyor. Ama bunlar ne olup bittiğini takip bile etmiyorlar. Öyle ki dünya yıkılsa, 3. Cihan Harbi çıksa, inanın CHP yönetiminin umurunda olmaz. Mesela şu soruyu kendilerine hiç sormuyorlar. 1. Dünya Savaşı bölgemizde sınırları...
Here's the version with subtitles. Forgive me. There you go.
Hemen dibinde kritik gelişmeler yaşanıyor. Ama bunlar ne olup bittiğini takip bile etmiyorlar. Öyle ki dünya yıkılsa, 3. Cihan Harbi çıksa, inanın CHP yönetiminin umurunda olmaz. Mesela şu soruyu kendilerine hiç sormuyorlar. 1. Dünya Savaşı bölgemizde sınırları yeniden belirlerken şartlar başka türlü zuhur etseydi acaba ne olurdu? Kuvvetle muhtemel Halep dediğimiz, İdlib dediğimiz, Hama dediğimiz, Şam dediğimiz, Rakka dediğimiz şehirler tıpkı Antep gibi, tıpkı Hatay gibi, tıpkı Urfa gibi bizim birer vilayetimiz olacaktı.
So do you understand why he's talking about World War I? Because that's when the Ottoman Empire was destroyed by Lawrence of Arabia and the Arab tribes, and in the Arab revolt, and they partitioned the region with Sykes-Picot and the Balfour Declaration into what you see today. But the irony is that pieces of land that should be Syrian, like Antioch, were given to Turkey, right? And instead of keeping quiet and being happy that land that this belonged to Turkey was given to Turkey, he's like, no. They should have redrawn more of it in our favor. So that he's basically hinting at what is to come, and effectively what is Turkey doing? It's gone. It's gone, and of course taken Idlib and been there for years. They're using Turkish currency there. He wants to revive the Ottoman Empire. Do you understand? And the sad thing about this is that many Muslims, Arab Muslims, so I'm not even talking about people who come from Turkey, they're Arab Muslims, they really think that, he's some kind of sultan who is going to come and, resurrect the Ottoman Empire from the dead, and that this will be very, very good for everyone. Well, his current behavior is not clear enough. Perhaps I can jog your memories. This guy is helping Israel fuel its jets and fuel its tanks when it's bombing Gaza. That's how much he cares about Muslims, okay? I think and about Arabs. So I think we can leave it at that. But once again, we should go back to you know, the bigger picture here. Erdogan has his plans. You know, he wants to revive the Ottoman Empire and take chunks of Syria in order to do that. And of course, guarantee the flow of resources through from Qatar to Turkey. And the Israelis also have their plan, you know, so this is a win-win situation for everybody except Syria. Turkey, Erdogan gets to persecute the Kurds, gets to have his pipeline, gets to take more land. Israel gets to have its Greater Israel project, gets to have the strategic Mount Haramon, is also probably going to steal more resources from the Golan. Mount Haramon itself has a lot of water, not to mention you've got a little bit of gas and oil also in the Golan Heights. And they'll build settlements there and keep expanding their colonies. The Americans will keep stealing oil. They'll block the new Silk Road. So everybody wins. All the imperial powers win. And of course, the Daesh scum that have taken over get to sit on the throne. You know, Jolani gets to call himself an emir or whatever, you know, rank he currently has in ISIS and Al-Qaeda and sit on the throne like some little gimp. So everybody wins except Syrians, but of course some Syrians are too busy celebrating and they're still drunk on you know, they're still punch drunk and they've got too much hubris going on for them to have realized that they've been hoodwinked and that they've been had. And when I say had, I mean land has been stolen, resources have been stolen that will take generations, if not centuries, to get back. You understand now? Do you understand now? But apparently geopolitics is too much, right? This makes you an Assadist. Apparently, if you point out the fact that Syria has resources and is situated at the crossroads of 3 continents, therefore it is strategic, this makes you someone who kisses Bashar al-Assad's backside. Like, these people are so dumb. It's embarrassing, honestly, that they can't even appreciate their own... I'm not talking about all Syrians, but a large chunk, that they can't appreciate the wealth and history of their own country, and yet they claim to love it so much. They just don't value it properly. They don't understand the value of Syria, its true value. But of course, my friends, look at these brave, gallant, valiant, and chivalrous fighters, Syrian fighters, no less, that have come and liberated Syria. Listen to them as the Arabic rolls off of their tongues.
Allahu Akbar! Les Russes! C'est les Russes, frère! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
He's speaking French. He's saying it's the Russians, brother. C'est les Russes, frère. He's speaking French. This is some person from France. Now, I'm not saying no one in Syria can speak French, because that... no, they can speak French, but the problem is even Emmanuel Macron was admitting to the media, I think it was Le Figaro, that there are French jihadists, so people that have left France who are not Syrian, who went to Syria during the last weeks in order to fight. And we know that they've been doing that for years, but we have confirmation of that. So once again, very Syrian, right? Here we've got more Syrian rebels inside the Umayyad mosque, no less.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. We are here right now in the Umayyad mosque in Damascus, in Sham. Allahu Akbar. In the hands of the Mujahideen. Allahumma laka alhamdu shukr ya Rab. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Again, there's nothing wrong with what they're saying. Allahu Akbar, God is great. This is not the issue. But the issue is that these are the only Arabic words they know. And we keep hearing from the media that these are Syrian rebels fighting for democracy in Syria. This guy is not Syrian. As a matter of fact, he's on the list of Al-Qaeda terrorists in his own country in Turkey. You know, these people are foreign fighters. They probably don't even have valid tourist visas. How did they get in the country? I was showing you Clarissa Ward earlier, right? We were watching her going into a prison cell, allegedly, after we know that people cleared out the whole prison. But apparently she has such amazing detective skills. She uncovered the last prisoner in Syria. So my question is, who gave her a visa? Does she have a valid visa to be inside Syria? Probably not. So she's in the country illegally, but she's not a foreign fighter. That's not the issue. I'm just trying to show you how everyone in Syria, from the bloody foreign fighters to the journalists, they've all been violating Syria's sovereignty, walking in and out of the border, like, you know, coming and going like they please, like it's some kind of park or theme park. And it just shows you the contempt that they have for the country. They really just don't have any respect whatsoever. You know, if you're Syrian, good luck trying to get a tourist visa to go to the United States. Never mind coming in with rifles and pickup trucks with anti-aircraft guns. You know, but everyone can come to Syria and do as they please, right? We're just supposed to tolerate that shit.
Mana orqada turgan jamoatimiz mujohidlari. Alhamdulillah, Alloh subhanahu va taolodan bu fathu nusratni muborak qilishligini, Sham diyorida islom bayrog'i hilpirashi.
Again, I can understand the 3-4 words he's saying when he's quoting from the Quran, but I can't understand the rest of what he's saying because he's not Syrian. He's speaking what I think is East Turkic or Turkic, which is the language that Uyghurs speak, right? So from China, from Xinjiang. Here we've got these guys are from. I think they're speaking Russian. They might be Chechenian, though. I don't know. But they're basically talking about how they want to ethnically cleanse Alawites in Syria. So multiple crimes. Entering Syria without a visa, carrying a weapon without a permit, and then ethnic cleansing as well. Lovely. I mean, I'd be disgusted with a Syrian saying that. But on top of it, for a foreign mercenary, you know, just like we are clearing out Alawite villages. Who the fuck are you, first of all? Really, like really, honestly.
Идет зачистка Алавецких и Нусаритских сел. Сейчас мы зашли в середине сел и такбир кричим «Ла илляха илlallah, Мухаммад Расул» кричим.
Look how ignorant they are. Also, like he's saying, and we yell that there's no God except God. Yeah, as if like he thinks Alawites believe in a different religion or something. It just means that, you know, I bear witness there is no God but God. Every Muslim believes in this. Every monotheistic religion has the same belief. But he's been so brainwashed by sectarianism and taught to hate other sects and other ethnic groups that it's gotten to a point where it's like he has brain damage. Like he can't even grasp that, oh, these are also Muslims. And they believe and say the same things that I say. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable, the level of hatred and stupidity. Like why does he think Alawites would be offended by saying that I bear witness that there's no God except God? I mean, it's again, do you see what we're talking about when we say that sectarianism is dangerous? Because it's not only unhealthy and it's not only damaging to the social fabric, it's nonsensical on top of it. It's nonsensical, and it's people who are not Syrian who are coming to Syria and causing irreparable damage, who are carrying out war crimes like ethnic cleansing, and then they just, who knows what they do afterwards? They're not held accountable, definitely not. Maybe they go back to their own countries and they start doing that kind of stuff to their own people. It's just like reverberations of evil, you know what I'm saying?
Войска ля илляха илlallah наступают, войска, которые говорили, что Али это Бог или Башар это Бог, отступают, сидят в домах, боятся. Оставьте. Я оставлю. Поехали. Ля илляха илlallah. Ля илляха илlallah. Мухаммад Расулуллах. Мухаммад Расулуллах.
In any case, they're not Syrian, are they? They're definitely not Syrian, but you know, according to CNN, they are. So, you know, it's funny because they want to, they don't want you to hear what actual Syrians have to say. They want to give you one narrative, which is the extremist narrative that comes from, you know, filtered news sources like or curated rather, news outlets like CNN, like, you know, the Saudi-funded ones, BBC, New York Times, you know, and it's one narrative. There's no place for plurality or diversity or you know, or for nuance. No. It's, you know, the rebels are all Syrians. They're all freedom fighters. And now Al-Qaeda are removed from the list. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham are liberators. I mean, this is wild. You know, this is really wild. It's not cognitive dissonance, because these people that are going on television, like the head of MI6, and trying to rehabilitate, Jolani and Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which is Al-Qaeda. These people spy on us in the name of protecting us from Al-Qaeda, and then they tell us that Al-Qaeda are liberators because they happen to be carrying out their agenda in Syria. Isn't that weird? Isn't that funny? I mean, what a contradiction, not to mention it's a bloody lie. And again, this is not a revolution. I'm sorry. When you have to bring in $1 billion from the United States, and you got to bring in fighters from Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Afghanistan, from Libya, from Tunisia, from Iraq, from Saudi Arabia, from China, that's not a revolution, you know. When you've got such a significant chunk of the fighters that are guns for hire and mercenaries, it's not a revolution. You can call it whatever you like, but you're not going to dupe me, all right? And again, of course, you have a large chunk of Syrians that actually wanted a revolution. But you have to ask yourself that the result that just took place, that just happened now, it took 13 years to achieve. It took billions of dollars to achieve. If it was really just Syrians in the equation, just Syrians rising up and trying to get rid of, Bashar al-Assad and institute some new kind of government, do you think it would have actually even worked without all that foreign weight and support coming in? I don't think it would have, no. I don't think a natural, organic, genuine revolt would have taken that long and claimed that many lives and caused so much widespread suffering. And the reason you see many Syrians celebrating now, a good chunk of them wanted the revolution, that's obvious. I'm not saying the whole population, but of those that are celebrating, a good chunk of them wanted this result. Others just want an end to the war. Others are being hopeful. They're hoping that the country will now, become more reconciliatory, become more peaceful, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just trying to remind you, we were just talking about Syria's role in the region, internationally, its resources. There are too many hands in the cookie jar. Do you understand? There are too many foreign powers at play for this to be called a revolution. It's a dirty war. It's a regime change operation. It's a coup. And it's not like it's the first bloody one. They did it in Iraq. They did it in Libya. The whole goddamn region has undergone the same kind of pressure and meddling as Syria. Although you could argue Syria more than others in some aspects. But it's the same people that have been doing this for decades. Why is this a surprise to anyone is beyond me, to be quite frank. It's beyond me. And the saddest part is that these people are not just promoting sectarian violence, is that they will just, it's like they're coming into the country, they're crapping on the floor, creating irreparable damage, and then they leave, and, Syrians are the ones who have to clear that up and clear up that mess. And this goes against everything that they claim to represent. Do you actually think that Islam teaches you to behave like these people behave, like Daesh and Al-Qaeda? No, it doesn't. It just doesn't. These takfiri jihadists, they call themselves more religious and pretend that they are the correct way of Islam, and then they butcher people, just to prove a point. And that goes everything that Islam teaches. And I'm saying that as a Christian because I know what Syria is like, and I know the truth, and I know how the society is, and I know that this sectarianism doesn't work. It's bad, it's unhealthy, and it goes against what the religion teaches. I'm telling you. And on top of that, this Wahhabism, remember Wahhabism is a big element of it. That's been promoted by Britain. That's been promoted by the West for a long time now, for over 100 years. They've been trying to use that to make the image of Islam look different and look violent, and then, of course, use those groups to divide and conquer throughout the region, right? And they put people like the Al Saud family in power in Saudi Arabia, who, by the way, they themselves funded this war in Syria, or part of it, because they want to rely on people who have similar or an ideology that is not similar to them, but that can be used for their agenda, right? So Britain is people who work at MI6 and Whitehall are not themselves Wahhabis, but they understand how to use Wahhabism to divide and conquer the region for British, or rather for their own selfish interests. I still don't understand how the average person in England benefits from this. Quite the contrary, but you know what I mean? It's like they just promote things of the extremism and the radicalism that benefits their foreign policy, and that's it. That's it. Just like Zionism. Just like Zionism. It's the same thing, you know? They find the most violent form of it, and then they use it to divide and conquer, and it's always based on sectarianism, because it's a recipe for disaster, and unfortunately, it works a lot of the time. Unfortunately. So we'll continue in just a second. I've got more segments to go through with you guys. I just wanted to say thank you to I'm very sorry I'm unable to read your name because it's not loading, and they said keep up the good work. I appreciate it. Thank you whoever you are. But I'm grateful. And we've got one from Daniela. We've got one as well. Another contribution from Ali, who says, thank you for your great work in journalism. Thank you. Much appreciated. And thank you to everyone who's supporting my work while I'm half muzzled, right? So I'm very grateful to you. And we've got also we've got 2 new members on Patreon. We've got Edward and we've also got Billy. And I'm going to play you guys a crab dance and then we'll continue. I've got more updates on Syria that will quite frankly shock you. Yeah, if the previous ones haven't already.
Clap for that, you stupid bastard.
Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Listen, fuckhead, you have fucking crossed the line, claiming I'm the enemy. You got that, you goddamn son of a bitch?
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Cut that bitch off.
Thank you for Iron Dome.
Thank you. والله انتوا كلاب بصراحة يعني. ماشي نشتغل عادي.
We lied, we cheated, we stole.
China.
And you ain't black.
There's always the macro.
And then there's the micro.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
You talking to me?
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'll have 2 number 9s, a number 9 large.
we got him.
Because I have to do it myself. I know it's not.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Oh!
Disgusting!
She was 12, I was 30, but anyway.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Why attack Sanders?
Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. Okay.
Suck my dick and choke on it. I yield my time. Fuck you.
All right. Again, thank you to all of you supporting the show. Let's look at some videos that are coming out of Syria. And you can. I'm going to give you. I'm going to show you what the new government, the new regime, whatever the hell you want to call them, honestly, have in store for us. Okay. So it's just been what 2-3 days, and already the country is looking like this in Syria. So you can see here that. People are being told on through a loudspeaker on a megaphone that men and women should not socialize or mix in public. I mean, it's amazing, really. And this is in Mesjid. This is in downtown Damascus.
الرجاء ثم رجاء عدم اختلاط النساء بالرجال. كل شيء نساء أخذوا الأحشاء ينسوها فورا. الأحشاء تلبس فورا رجاء.
I can't believe what I'm hearing, honestly. I can't believe this. They're actually announcing it on a loudspeaker. They really are. And you can see here, this is the news. Apparently, this is the new Syrian justice minister saying that they're going to establish Sharia law
الحمد لله الذي صدقنا وعده وهنا القصر العدلي بحلب بين أيدي أبناء الثورة والمجاهدين. الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي دخلناه رافعين الرأس. أسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن نقيم أحكام شريعته في هذه المدينة الغراء. الآن سوف يجري إن شاء الله استلام القصر العدلي من الأخوة ومتابعة الأعمال والقيام إن شاء الله على الاستلام بشكل كامل بإذن الله عز وجل، والحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي صدقنا وعده وهنا القصر العدلي.
So Syria went from being a secular country where, you know, all sects, all ethnic groups, all religious groups treated equally, to now to this, apparently. And look at this woman, for example. She's standing next to Jolani, and he basically, you can get it. She's told to put on a veil. So in Syria, that's not how it works, okay? That's not how it works. In Syria, you dress how you like. You can walk down the street, you see one woman in a niqab, the next is in jeans, and then the next has a hijab. It's whatever. You know, you're free to do as you please. And now it's become like this. So, you know, they're changing the way the whole society functions. And once again, what was the goal of all of this war, these 13 years of war? I understood, we were told that it's to get rid of the dictator Bashar al-Assad, the regime, the tyrant, the one who tells everybody what to do, and then there will be freedom and democracy. This is not freedom and democracy. This is not even, you know, like the old Syria in terms of society. Forget the government, right? Look. And now there will be a morality police as well, apparently, in the street.
الأوقاف بمحاسبة من يخل في الآداب العامة، فنحن هون دخلنا في تنازع في الصلاحيات. كيف؟ وراح طلع لنا إشكالات كثيرة، فنحن ارتأينا أن تكون هي جزء من وزارة الداخلية، وأن يكون لدى وزارة الداخلية شرطة آداب يشرف عليها بعض الأخوة الشرعيين والدعاة، ويغلبوا جانب الدعوة على جانب العصا. يا إخواني، نحن إذا غلبنا العصا في الدعوة، هذا يدل على عجز في قدرتنا على إيصال الحق إلى الناس. والإسلام دين حق، يعني هو قوي بذاته، يحتاج عصا لمن يقف في وجهه في العصا.
You know, it's interesting he says that because once again, you can see with every statement that's coming out of his mouth, with every statement that's coming out of this transitional government, they are going further and further and further away from everything that was promised, right? And look in the background. Look behind him. There are two flags. There's the new Syrian flag, okay? And next to it is the flag of the Shahada, but you know, more specifically, it's a flag that's used by the Taliban, and it was used by elements of Al-Qaeda in Syria. It's a very distinct flag that you see only being used by you know, by these terrorist groups in Syria, by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and so on. Now look, let's put aside for a second who used to use it. Let's just look at this from you know, a contemporary or just like, you know, just how it is right now. Syria has a lot of ethnic groups, right? 10% of the population are Christian. So why is there just a flag for Muslims? Why isn't there a flag for Christians, for example? Right? It's not just that you happen to have 10% of the population that are Christian. Christianity began in Syria. It didn't begin in Mongolia or in Venezuela. It began in Syria, right? It comes from Syria. So why not put up a flag for Christians as well? Because, you know, when you start doing that, you're going to have to end up putting 20 plus flags, literally 20 plus flags to accommodate every single sect, every single ethnic group, every single religious group. You know, this is why Syria had a secular model. And frankly, it makes you feel excluded, you know. If you're a Syrian Christian and you're looking at that, you're wondering, hold on a second, why, first of all, the Syrian flags have been changed. Okay, we had a revolution, democracy, this and that. But now you're putting up a second flag just for Muslims. I mean, how will you not feel excluded? Do you understand? It's a pluralistic society. It's a society that has, like I said, 20 plus different ethnic and religious groups. This is a message that's basically saying you're excluded. In addition to the fact that, you know, now you're supposed to obey a different dress code, and now men and women have to be separate. I mean, you know, it's like they want to change every single element of your daily life. And I want to understand something. Syrians haven't had proper school and education for the last 13 years because of the war. Why isn't the focus on rebuilding the education system? Are you really going to sit there and tell me it's more important to have morality police in the streets than it is to rebuild the education system? What kind of priority is this? I mean, it's all screwed up. It's all screwed up. You can't actually sit there and tell me like these are people who are going to run a state, and Syria no less. I mean, look at the size of the country. Look at the challenges that it has to face in terms of reconstruction. There's a million things that have to be done, and they're focusing on this. That tells you everything you need to know about these people and their priorities. And the Syrians who cheered this on, like a bunch of bozos, who cheered on these extremists into power, are going to have a very, very rude awakening. They are going to have a very rude awakening. This guy was, look at this. This guy from Saudi Arabia on the left was dressing up boys in suicide vests, like on the right, during the war in Syria. Okay, so a straight up terrorist, you know, just watch the video.
عبد الرحمن يا مرحبا أسأل الله أن يحفظكم أنتم أمهاتنا أجمعين ببريدة وما حولها وبكل أمهات المجاهدين أسأل الله يثبتنا وإياكم هنيئا لك أن هذا البطل يكون إن شاء الله عروسا في جنات النعيم هذه الليلة مع حور حسان مقصورات في الخيام. أسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى أن يجعل اليوم عملية مثخنة في أعداء الله سبحانه وتعالى، وأسأل الله أن يكون سبب عن تفريج أكثر من 400,000 مسلم ومسلمة اليوم يصرخن تحت القصف لك كل أجر هؤلاء عند الله سبحانه وتعالى. أسأل الله يثبته. وأيضا زوجة أخونا يونس هنيئا لك أن يكون زوجك يوم القيامة بانتظارك يوم القيامة ويدخلك إلى جنات النعيم. والله أنا أقول أن الشهداء وأما الاستشهادين فهم أعظم الشهداء. والله إني أقول إنهم أشد الناس برا بأزواجهم وأمهاتهم وأولادهم، لأن بالدنيا أنتم تحتاجون. أنا أمي ببريدة منيرة العشاب وأمه وكذا يحتاجوننا بالدنيا، لكن بالدنيا في غيرنا. لكن يوم القيامة لا يوجد للإنسان إلا من سبق بعمل صالح ويشفع الشهيد في 70 في أهل بيته. فالله يحفظك يثبتنا وإياه.
So now this guy is being welcomed into Damascus to preach.
فهل رأيتم يا أهل سوريا ما وعدكم ربكم حقا؟ نعم والله يا رب رأينا ما وعدتنا حقا. نعم لم تكن هينة بذلت فيها خيرة الدماء.
Look, my point here is that Syrians, even those who accept, okay, we've got to rebuild the country now, let's move forward. They're not looking to go from, you know, one radical form of government where it's, you know, they were saying, oh my God, it's the most brutal dictatorship in the 21st century. That's the line they're using. They're not looking to go from one extreme form of government to another extreme form of government, are they? I do not believe that most Syrians want that. And don't forget that these people, like this one who's preaching here now, just casually preaching in Damascus, has blood on his hands. This guy has blood on his hands. You know, Jolani has blood on his hands. We've seen his handiwork in Iraq, in Syria. We've seen how Daesh and Al-Qaeda chopped people's heads off and blew them up, and they terrorized and killed civilians. So why are you willing to forgive their bloodshed but not Bashar al-Assad's bloodshed? Shouldn't both of them be held to account? I thought that's the whole point of this revolution, is that, you know, we're going to have like equality. There's going to be functioning justice system, no corruption. So shouldn't both of these people that you're saying are bad be held to account, right? What kind of standard is going on here? It looks like a double standard more than anything else, right? So there's something very off with all of this. So, you know, violence is okay as long as you do it with a suicide vest, but not from a barrel bomb. Like, what is the message being sent here? You understand? It doesn't click. It doesn't match. It's incompatible, right? You can't just turn a blind eye to Jolani and his handiwork and this guy's handiwork and everybody in Al-Qaeda and their handiwork, because then you're just going to end up with the same problem again, aren't you? You're putting other violent people in power. You're putting a different kind of tyrant in power instead of another tyrant, right? Again, I don't buy into the whole butcher murderous regime, all of this crap, because they never use these terms against George Bush and Biden and all the Western leaders. But let's just go along with it for the sake of argument, right? Let's play along with it. You know, it's just hypocritical. They're just replacing one form of extremism, one form of tyranny with another. And just because it happens to be sectarian, some people like it. That is the sad truth. Some people are fine with the tyranny and they're fine with the bloodshed as long as it's their sect that's doing it. And I'm not down with sectarianism. I think Syria should be secular. It works when it's secular and everybody gets along just fine. Okay. And allowing Turkey and Qatar, I mean, and the United States and Israel to take advantage of the situation on top of it. I mean, Jesus, I've said enough, honestly. That's just scandalous. That's shameful. But look at these people from Reuters, you know, for example, here trying to rehabilitate these Al-Qaeda scumbags and interview them like they're just casual people. You know, now they put on jumpers instead of putting on their suicide vests, and they're all cool, you know, and you can have a chat with them in English and everything's fine and lovely, you know?
Let's go. Introduce yourself, please.
I'm Syrian from Aleppo. Born in Syria, Aleppo, 27 February 1988.
Okay.
I lived my first 6 years in Syria, then traveled with my family to UAE. Stayed there for...
I'll put the interview below if you want to watch it, because it's 11 minutes. But look at some of the, you know, they're trying to film it in a format that's like really casual, just like they do with Jordani, you know? You have to remember, a large part of media is about image, and it's about, it's like setting a stage, you know? Okay, let's put Jordani in a suit. Let's you know, trim his beard a little bit. And then the next time around, they dressed him up like Zelensky because Zelensky's outfit resonated with people. You get the idea. So a lot of it is about imaging. But here, I want to show you what happened to this Syrian actress. This is the new free Syria, the democratic Syria, yeah? Here.
نحن وطالعين على الحاجز وقفونا الهوية.
So she said they were stopped at a checkpoint. They asked for, you know, they were asked for their ID cards.
طلبوا من صديقي الهوية أعطاهم الهوية.
So they asked a friend for his ID, and he showed it to them.
طبعا اللي واقف في أكثر من عنصر واقف، واحد منهم ملتم، واللي ملتم حاكانا، فقال له إنه أنت جرمانة شو جاي تعمل بالمزة؟ قال له عم وصل.
Yeah, so one of them, there are two guys. One of them was asking them, like, you're in Jaramana, what are you doing in Mesjid? They're just different areas in Damascus, okay? And then he answers the guy at the checkpoint. So he tells the guy at the checkpoint,
قال له عم وصل أصدقائي.
I'm just, you know, I'm just driving my just taking my friends somewhere, just dropping them off.
قال له أنتوا كتير فري على فكرة. قال له عفوا ما فهمت. قال له العنصر اللي واقف، قال له ما في شيء عنا اسمه أصدقاء وتوصل أصدقائك، نحن بالحكومة القادمة والدولة القادمة. إجا قال له طيب نحن خلصنا من حكم بشار. قال له ما دخلني، نحن هلأ بدولة إسلامية.
So the guy at the checkpoint who's wearing a mask, he tells her friend who's driving, you seem to be a bit too free. He even said the word free in English, right? And her friend who's driving said, I don't understand what you mean. And the guy at the checkpoint says that, you know, there's no such thing anymore as, you know, friends. Okay. And he's referring to the fact that she's a girl, and, you know, she's a woman and he's a man. And the driver, her friend, tells the guy at the checkpoint, well, we just got done with you know, one form of extreme government. What's this? And then the guy at the checkpoint tells him, I don't care. This is now what did he say? An Islamic state.
بشار قال له ما دخلني، نحن هلا بدولة إسلامية.
Yeah. So he said we just got done with Bashar. He says, I don't care. This is an Islamic state now.
ما في شيء اسمه أصدقاء.
There's no such thing as friends.
قال له رفيقي، قال له ليش بالدين الإسلامي ما في أصدقاء؟ إجا قال له في أصدقاء ولكن بين الشباب بس، ما في صداقة بين
And so her friend says, you don't have such a thing as just being friends in amongst Muslims. And then the guard at the checkpoint says, no, only between men. That's just between friendship is just between men.
شاب وبنت البنت ممنوع تطلع غير مع صلة رحم أخوة أو زوجة وهي الأصدقاء شباب وبنات هي متعبة ومنهكة هي
Yeah, and a woman is only allowed out with her guardian, with her brother, with her father. There's no more going out with between friends. However you want to interpret that. The point is now that you need to go out with a guardian. That's what they're being told. This is the democratic free Syria.
لنا كلنا ولو سمحت راجع دينك وهيك قال له نحن بهذا المعنى أتمنى من كل قلبي إنه هاي الحالة تكون حالة فردية ولا تعبر عن ما هو قادم. أنا كان لازم أطلع لازم أحكي.
So she's basically saying, I hope this is just a one-off. I really hope that this is just a like a freak encounter, not a sign of things to come.
وقول الشيء اللي صار معنا وهو نازل صديقي سأل على نفس الحاجز قالوا له أنت درزي ولا سني.
Oh, lovely, right? So they also asked her friend who's driving, are you Druze? Are you Sunni? More sectarianism.
قال لهم عفوا أنا بالسعودية ما سألت هذا السؤال.
And he said, and her friend refused to answer. He said, even in Saudi Arabia, they did not ask me this question.
قال له لا تفهمنا غلط يعني بس يعني رجاء إنه خلص خليك بمنطقتك وهدول الشرع.
And the guards tried to like quell the thing and say, no, don't misunderstand us, but just stay in your area.
على العناصر يمكن قال لهم إنه كل من راجع على مكانه. هذا اللي صار بحرفيته هذا اللي صار معي أنا شخصيا وإن شاء الله تكون الحالة فردية.
So it's looking lovely, huh? It's looking lovely. Really, it just the new Syria exudes democracy, doesn't it? And freedom and love and everything nice. Here's this is of a Lebanese Christian woman who's in Syria. So she's talking about her brother in Latakia. I'm not going to play the whole video, but just very briefly what happened to her brother, okay?
بيهددوا أخي إنه أنت تطلع من البيت ونحن ما بدنا إياكم أنتم مسيحية وما بدنا إياكم.
Yeah, so people start, huffing and puffing at the doors at the house, trying to get her kick her family out, kick her brother out, saying we don't want any Christians here, leave.
يعني تحشوا على البيت وأمي كحشوا ونحن صرنا عمر وأمي سورية هيدا بيتنا يعني طلعوا أمي كحشونا من البيت.
And we've been here, for eons. It's our house. This is our house.
حاسة إنه هيدا هو اللي وعدتونا فيه، هيدا اللي وعدنا فيه نحن عبال الفيديو يوصل لكل العالم.
Yeah, and she's saying, is this what you promised us? This is the, she's referring to the new Syria, right?
لكل العالم. عن جد لكل العالم المسؤول عن هالثورة هو بيرضاها خيي وحيد إنه هي طلعوا عم يهددوه إنه أنت.
She says, my brother was all by himself, and they tried to threaten him and kick him out of the house. And is this what you promised us? Is this, those who are responsible for the revolution? Is this, what it's come to? You get the idea. Here's another guy. So, by the way, the first girl I showed you, the first woman, she's an actress. Yeah, she's a Syrian actress. This woman, I don't know her, or she's an actress. I think she's just a normal civilian. This guy here is also an actor from Syria. And yeah, so some people broke into his house. They were armed. They said they're part of the revolution. They're rebels, basically. They smashed up the house. They took his car keys. They stole the car as well. And they said because you're an Alawite. That's why they did it. basically, just until they can make sure that he hasn't done anything wrong. Like, what does that even mean? Like, we're gonna steal your car because you're an Alawite, and you got to prove you haven't done anything wrong. What? You prove your innocence. I mean, like this is chaotic at best. Really, if you call this chaotic, that's putting it very mildly. This is some vile sectarian dog crap. That's what this behavior is. This is crazy dog crap. You know, like does any of this sound orderly or reassuring or secure or safe or democratic? No, it's just dog crap upon dog crap. This is why I gave the analogy of you're telling me Bashar al-Assad is a faulty, broken down car. You're taking away the car and giving people a bicycle, and then saying, "Oh, that's a set of wheels." Motherfucker, it's a bicycle. We don't want a bicycle instead of a broken car. We want a brand new car. You know what I'm saying? A brand new car that exhibit himself pimped. Okay, on Pimp My Ride. Not a bloody bicycle. You can't just get rid of the government for the sake of getting rid of the government and then give people dog shit sectarianism. That is called degeneracy. That is called regression. That is called stupidity. That is called backwardness, you know? Does this really need explaining? I mean, come on. I'll read you one tweet over here, which really kind of sums it up. You cannot expect the jihadist terror groups who have slaughtered scores of civilians of all minority sects and ethnicities to build a state that preserves them. Despite all the assurances being echoed in the media, 13 years of brutal atrocities later, everyone knows who they are. Or everyone knows what they are, rather. Exactly, you know? And I'll read you another tweet. If the rebels are sincere about accountability, right? Because they're saying we're going to hold those who are in the regime accountable. We're going to have justice and all these lovely things. Great. If the rebels are sincere about accountability and starting fresh, starting anew, it would also include the rebel jihadists like Jolani, who were beheading, who were crucifying, who were mutilating and sending suicide bombers and kidnapping people. And especially when they did it to minorities and persecuted them for the last 13 years, right? Here's the tweet so you can see it on the screen. Okay? This is a very important point. Where is the accountability for Al-Jolani and his ilk? I don't want these people in power. You know, forget, like, put aside all of the stuff that I just showed you, which is, I mean, incriminating enough in and of itself, even if they were choir boys during the revolution and they were well behaved. Just this alone in the last few days is bad enough, right? But these people are murderers and terrorists. They actually terrorized Syrians. They carried out heinous acts of political violence, you know, really mass violence. Where's the accountability for them? How can you say, okay, the government has to go because it's brutal and violent, but these guys can come even though they're also brutal and violent? As a matter of fact, they're even more brutal and violent, but let's leave that aside. Let's go along. Let's go along with what they're saying, right? Let's say the Bashar al-Assad was the devil. Okay, he's gone. Where's the accountability for these guys? You're going to deny they were chopping people's heads off? You're going to deny that they were persecuting minorities? That they killed Syrians of all backgrounds, Sunnis, Shias, Alawites, Christians, Druze, you name it? You're going to deny that? Maybe you can go and trick somebody else, but you're not going to dupe me. So this is the Syria that is manifesting before our very eyes. It's a sectarian Syria. It's an oppressive Syria. It has no democracy in it. It's got no sense of justice or accountability. It's a joke. It's a joke. It's just straight up extremism and fanaticism. And what else would you expect when we told you for years, look who's backing this? It's Saudi Arabia. It's the Wahhabis. It's the Muslim Brotherhood. It's America. When has America ever done anything good? America has dirty hands. Israel have dirty hands. When have they ever done anything good for Arabs? When? No, some people don't want to listen, and now they're shocked. What can I say? I don't want to say I told you so, because it's not just their country, is it? It doesn't just belong to the idiots who supported the revolution. It's not just theirs. According to them, it's everybody's, right? let's test those limits. Let's see how much I'm allowed to say then. Let's see how much they respect opinions. Apparently not very much. And the most shocking are those that called themselves pro-Palestine and cheered when the government in Damascus fell, thinking that, oh yeah, you know, this is great. And they just didn't understand that actually this is going to screw Palestinians. Now, again, just listen to this Israeli journalist talking. They're actually talking in Arabic, which is funny because I think he's an Iraqi Jew originally, but he's an Israeli. And just look at what he's saying, okay?
نحن أسبوع من الثورة الإسلامية في سوريا، بس شوف إسرائيل ضربت حزب الله، موجودة في لبنان، في جنوب لبنان، موجودة في سوريا، لأين نذهب؟
خلينا لبنان، سوريا، وبعد شوي بنوصل على بغداد عند أبوك وأمك وكل العائلة.
يا ريت يا ريت. ولهذا برأيي إيران هي الهدف، وإسرائيل لازم تسبق وتضرب إيران قبل كل شيء.
طيب الجولاني عنده 11 وزير كلهم بيشبهوك مع اللحية يعني.
طيب يلا يمكن ياخذوني أنا مع اللحية. أنا بقول لك إنه أنا مع السنيين وأنا مع المحور السني، وصحيح انه هم متطرفين والقاعده، بس افضل الي انه مش موجود في دمشق بشار اسد، انه كان يريد طاقه نوويه وكان يعطي سلاح لحزب الله. صح.
Okay, so just do you hear what he's saying? It doesn't matter even if you're an Israeli and you're watching, even if you're an Israeli. Your position and my position don't matter here. I'm just trying to demonstrate to you how what happened in Syria benefits Israel. You can't deny that. This is an Israeli. He's an Israeli journalist. He actually dressed up as a sheikh and smuggled himself into Syria. He entered Syria illegally and started filming there. But this Israeli is telling you on camera that Israel's position aligns with the position of the new government in Damascus. So do you understand why this can't be called a revolution when the illegal occupier is backing the opposition? Okay, because Syria and Israel have been in war for 50 years. And I'll come back to that in a second. I just want to show you one of the announcements that's been made today. And it relates to what he just pointed out. So Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, Al-Qaeda, the people that have taken over Damascus, have said that they've issued a new ruling, essentially, okay? And they are telling all of the Palestinians to basically pack it up and leave, all of the Palestinian resistance groups. Okay? So this is an Al-Akhbar, which is a Lebanese paper, and they're saying that this new government, they don't even take the initiative to launch a position on the open Israeli aggression against their country. So again, it's been translated from Arabic. What they're saying is that the people that are in charge of Damascus, not only are they doing nothing about the Israeli attacks against Syria, but on top of that, they are going for cold normalization with Israel. Okay? So they're not talking about directly establishing relations. Actually, some of them are, but they're talking about practical steps on the part of the new regime that prevent the existence of any existing or potential resistance against Israel from Syrian territory. Okay, so the first indication of that, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham took a decision and they told all of the representatives of the Palestinian factions in Syria that there will no longer be any weapons or training camps or military headquarters for the Palestinian factions, and that the factions must dissolve their military formations as soon as possible in exchange for political or charitable work under the roof of the new Syrian state. Okay? So basically this means that Palestinians are prohibited from using Syria as a headquarters or a corridor for any activity against Israel. Okay? So you know, for example, that Palestinian Islamic Jihad, they're headquartered in Damascus, right? Syria was the only Arab state that still supported the Palestinian cause in every way, really. If you're a Palestinian refugee, you got full rights, full responsibilities, like any Syrian citizen, but you don't have citizenship because they want to make sure that one day when Palestine's liberated, you have the right of return, for example, right? So Palestinians always been given equal rights and responsibilities. Only Arab country that did that is Syria. Military support, political support, allowing them to set up offices, right? Or training camps in this example. And of course, because Syria itself is also occupied by Israel, right? So Syria shares that with Palestinians. It's also under, not to the same extent, of course, but well, it's certainly getting worse now, but Syria, you know, has always supported the Palestinians as a matter of policy, of principle, and of course has shared the aspect of also being occupied. But now, for the first time in history, they've told the Palestinians to pack it up and leave. So now Syria has the same position as Jordan or Egypt or all the other Arab states, basically. So do you see how the takeover of Al-Qaeda in Damascus directly benefits Israel? Not only have Israel taken more land inside of Syria, not only did they take Mount Haramun, not only did they destroy Syria's arsenal, but they've also got a government, a regime in Damascus that refuses to give the Palestinians any support except, what is it, opening charities. So again, I'm not giving you my opinion, and I'm not saying, you know, what my opinion is. I'm giving you a fact. This is a fact. It's the news from Al Akhbar, and it's a decision taken by Al Qaeda in Damascus. They are directly benefiting Israel. And this guy, this Israeli, I'll repeat the video. What is he saying? He says, yeah, Al Qaeda are extremists, but I have the same position as them. That's an Israeli telling you this. It's straight from the horse's mouth. Listen to it again. Listen to it again.
نحن أسبوع من الثورة الإسلامية في سوريا، بس شوف إسرائيل ضربت حزب الله، موجودة في لبنان، في جنوب لبنان، موجودة في سوريا، لأين نذهب؟
خلينا لبنان، سوريا، وبعد شوي بنوصل على بغداد عند أبوك وأمك وكل العائلة.
يا ريت يا ريت. ولهذا برأيي إيران هي الهدف، وإسرائيل لازم تسبق وتضرب إيران قبل كل شيء.
طيب الجولاني عنده 11 وزير كلهم بيشبهوك مع اللحية.
طيب يلا يمكن ياخذوني انا مع اللحية. انا بقول لك انه انا مع السنيين، وانا مع المحور السني، وصحيح انه هم متطرفين والقاعدة، بس افضل الي انه مش موجود في دمشق بشار اسد، انه كان يريد طاقة نووية وكان يعطي سلاح لحزب الله. صح.
I think that pretty much says it all, right? That pretty much says it all. And again, I'm not giving you my opinion or what I believe in. I'm reporting the facts as they are, that this benefits Israel greatly in its foreign policy and in general, you know, with everything that's happening. I mean, just the fact that we're talking about Syria now more than we are about Gaza is already taking heat off of Netanyahu, off of his government. You see how I don't say regime every second like these bozos at CNN? But yeah, it's taking attention away from what's happening in Gaza, which benefits them in that regard. But this policy change is really huge. Syria really was the last Arab state that still supported the Palestinian cause, and now that is over. That is over, and that is a massive, massive victory for Israel and for the United States. It is. It is. So perhaps those who call themselves pro-Palestine should be asking themselves why they are cheering on the removal of the last government that was supporting Palestinians. No, again, it's not an opinion. It's just, I'm pointing out a very obvious contradiction. You can't say you're pro-Palestine and then cheer when the last pro-Palestine Arab government is removed from power. Doesn't make any sense. So let me show you what, excuse me. Just closing this one out, and I'll read some more of your comments and your donations, and I'm very grateful again for for your support while I'm still under investigation. I'm trying to stream more. I'm trying to get back into the rhythm. But again, you know, the police arresting me and saying that I might be charged for terrorism, it's directly impeded me from working. So, you know, for those of you who are still donating, thank you, because I thank you for being understanding and getting that I can't talk and report and comment as freely as I could before. Remember that this law is so oppressive that it criminalizes opinions. It literally says the word opinion in there. And I mean, it's of course completely ridiculous that you know, they're accusing me of basically putting me in the same group as people like Jolani, who chop heads off, and he gets removed from the terror list. Isn't that amazing? So if I open my mouth as a journalist, they arrest me, but Jolani gets rewarded. Isn't that amazing? Well, welcome to the US, to the UK, to the Western concept of free speech and democracy and free press, right? Apparently, terrorism is fine as long as you're not a threat to, you know, you're not offending basically anyone who's a Zionist or an imperialist or, you know. But if you tell the truth, that's very bad. So thank you for your donations on PayPal. I'm just going to read some of them here. We've got one. This is a contribution from Annalita, who says, "Thank you very much for your work, Richard. Keep it up. Thank you." And we've got one from Judith as well, although there's no note. There's another one from Zenith. Thank you, Zenith. And also we've got one from Qadar, who says, "Help support the channel. I'm Muslim. Been listening to you for a while. Well done, sir." Thank you. Thank you. And we have another one here from Ali, who says donation. Thank you guys very much. I'll put the links below, but let's continue. So here, let's talk about Iran, okay? Because I believe that Iran is next on the chopping block after Syria has been destroyed now by the West and by Israel and Turkey and Qatar and Saudi Arabia and co. Iran is next on the chopping block. And you even have this thread by an Israeli pilot who is explaining the role that Syria played and why now it's easier to attack Iran. So he writes that Israel has now destroyed Syria's air defenses, dropping 1,800 bombs on over 500 targets in a few hours. Okay? That number has actually surpassed 500 now. So Israel has bombed Syria over 500 times in the last 3-4 days. Keep in mind, when Bashar al-Assad was in power, they did a few hundred airstrikes in 10 years. Now they did them in 4 days. So this means, Naftali goes on to say that Israel can use Syria's airspace more freely, meaning violate it, turning Syria into a springboard for attacking Iran, which is exactly what they would do with Lebanon's airspace, actually. When they would bomb Syria, they would go through Lebanon to reach the targets without any interference, you know, to get as close as possible in a safe manner, and then they would cut into Syria and go that way. So he continues here and says that Syria used to possess the most densely concentrated array of air defense batteries in the world. Dozens of Russian-made SA-17s, 22s, 6s, 8s, and 5s, 5 batteries launched hundreds of missiles at Israeli fighter jets over the past decade, downing an Israeli F-16 in 2018. Generations of Israeli fighter pilots were raised memorizing the range of Syrian SA-5 missiles and studying the vulnerabilities of the MiG-29. So MiGs are of course, Russian Soviet planes. And their weakness was that they had weak radar and a small fuel tank. But no longer. The nemesis of the Israeli Air Force has been completely destroyed. So do you see, again, the vocabulary being used? This is from an Israeli. An Israeli is saying that Syria had the most densely packed array of anti-aircraft in the Middle East. And who's the Israeli Air Force's nemesis? The Syrian MiG-29. Now, obviously, you know, Syria's military was not in a state, especially after this war, after it was already hollowed out, of beating Israel one-on-one. You know, Israel has always had that support from NATO, from the West, in terms of logistical supply, intelligence, and so on. But nevertheless, when the Israelis are admitting how much of I don't want to say the word threat because they're the ones bombing Syria. They're the threat. But of how much of a challenge and how much of an obstacle Syria's defenses and military gear posed, it says a lot, right? It had deterrence. It did have deterrence. Even though I was always complaining that, look how much they're bombing Syria, I would always point this out and criticize them for not doing enough. But even then, you compare that to now, and you can see actually they were doing as best as they could, I suppose. Once again, Israel is being armed by Germany, by the UK, by the US. It has unlimited amounts of ammunition and resources. So we have to take that into consideration. He goes on to say that even Russia's advanced S-300 batteries used by Iran were destroyed by the Israeli Air Force earlier this year. While Iran still likely possesses dozens of advanced air defense systems, the balance of power in the Middle East has shifted. It has shifted. Now, S-300s are not the latest generation of surface-to-air missiles produced by the Russians. They actually have S-400s, but I don't recall them having any. Well, I don't recall them having many of them, if any at all, in Syria, and certainly they didn't give them to Syria. I think they tried transferring some S-300s, but the models that he was talking about before, one of them reached Dimona, for example. We're talking about an SA-200, which is from the Cold War. So Syria had a lot of Cold War era Soviet gear that was still functional and still useful. Dimona is the nuclear reactor that the Israelis build their nuclear weapons at. It's their prime nuclear facility, and they were bombing Syria about 2 years ago, and Syria fired a surface-to-air missile. It was errant to the point that it actually followed that jet for a few hundred kilometers before landing roughly 30, 40 kilometers away from Dimona. So it could have caused a massive nuclear issue, and it would have been, entirely the Israelis' fault. No one invited them to bomb Syria, right? But Syria is just defending its airspace. But it just goes to show you that these things are still effective, even though they weren't the latest gear. The way that they were, the amount of batteries and the way that they were positioned was still effective to a large extent. So here we've got a military correspondent for the Times of Israel. Look what he says. It says, after over a decade of evading air defenses over the skies of Syria during a campaign against Iran's supply of weapons to Hezbollah, the Israeli Air Force says it has achieved total air superiority in the area. An Israeli bombing campaign earlier this week across Syria aimed at taking out advanced weaponry that can fall into the hands of hostile elements following the collapse of the Bashar al-Assad regime also destroyed the vast majority of the air defenses in the country. So you see that they're contradicting themselves, because one minute they say that they're destroying weapons that are going to be transferred, and then they say they're destroying weapons that could fall into the wrong hands. But how can we're talking about surface-to-air missiles, about air defense? Why? How could they fall into the wrong hands exactly? They're not offensive weapons; they're defensive weapons, aren't they? They're even saying it in the name. They're air defense weapons. So they would only be a problem if you're attacking Syria. So they're kind of admitting in their own sentence that they're a problem because Israel always likes to bomb Syria, right? So that was a funny thing I wanted to point out here. But just look at what he's saying. He's saying that according to the military, the Israeli Air Force destroyed 86% of air defenses across Syria. So that's a total of 107 separate air defense components and 47 radars. It's a radar. How can a radar fall into the wrong hands? It's just, it's a radar. That's it. It goes to show you again that they want to keep Syria defenseless. It's got nothing to do with Bashar al-Assad. Whoever takes over Syria, or let me rephrase that: the Syrian people, right? They love to use that phrase, the Ukrainian people, the Syrian people, every time they want to make some pontificating statement. But seriously, I'm not doing it sarcastically. Syria, the Syrian people need defenses, do they not? Right? Look at what Israel does in the name of its security, right? It justifies everything. So, well, guess what? Syria also wants security, and it needs it as a matter of fact, because it keeps getting attacked by Israel. they've taken that security away. And these jihadists, these Al-Qaeda henchmen, head choppers that had just taken over Damascus, allowed them to do it. So at best, they're incompetent, and at worst, and you should assume the worst, they conspired with Israel to do that. But thank God they finally issued a rebuke at the United Nations via the Syrian ambassador to the permanent mission there. So all of the diplomats in the Syrian diplomatic corps have been told to remain at their posts. They have not been replaced or reappointed yet, or called back, called back home. But regardless, this so-called new government, the transitional government, told the Syrian ambassador to the UN in New York to rebuke the Israelis after several days of Israel stealing land, destroying every defense and weapon imaginable that Syria possesses, ships, tanks, ammunition dumps, whatever. And like the only thing they did is just, oh yeah, say something please at the UN after 5 days. So they have successfully transformed Syria into a hollowed out Western Israeli puppet regime that can't stand up for itself. Well done. Well done. And here you can see the result. You can see the result. I mean, just look at these tanks, all of these helicopters. I mean, all of it just on the air, still on the airfield and in the bases, turned to rubble, to ash. So it clearly didn't pose a threat to anyone. It just, they just destroyed it for the sake of destroying it because they could. And you remember how many times they bombed Damascus airport. Look, all I mean, I showed you this photograph actually, but this one's more zoomed out now. Yeah, I mean, it's insane. They destroyed Damascus airport, Aleppo airport several times. I don't know why this bloody picture keeps coming up. I'm trying to show you different ones. Yeah, so this one was released by the Israelis themselves, and they're just showing off their footage, just like they show off their genocide. So they love releasing footage, and you can see all of this stuff is on the runway. It's on the ground. It's not flying. It's not manned. It's not being used in any capacity. They just want to make sure that Syria is a neutered, eunuch, impotent, spineless, defanged, declawed, whatever, hollowed out state. That's it. They don't want any capacity left for Syria to defend itself. Outrageous, truly outrageous. I mean, over 500 airstrikes. Madness. And the worst part is, look what they've taken, this, Mount Haramon. Look at that. Do you see what we're talking about? When you're up there, you can see all over Lebanon, okay? It's the highest peak in Syria, and it's called Jabal al-Sheikh because it looks like, the head of a sheikh, the snow, basically. But it's I can't overstate how strategic and how important this place is. And they took it without a fight. That is the most pathetic part of all this. And this is what Jolani says. Oh, we're not ready to fight. See that? People are exhausted from war.
القلق كان فيها هو تواجد ميليشيات إيرانية وميليشيات حزب الله ووجود النظام نفسه اللي قام بالمجازر اللي شايفينها اليوم.
Changing the subject, deflecting all of this, and I found an accurate graphic of what's going on. This is what Netanyahu is doing to the new government, basically. And I mean, it's not really the new government, is it? He's doing it to all of Syria. That's really what the truth is. That's what the truth. That's what's really happening. And to make matters worse, they're already ethnically cleansing the southern parts of Syria. For example, these villages that are in the surrounding areas of Dar'a, they're telling people to evacuate. They're telling them to go, just like they do with Gaza, or with Lebanon. Oh, this is you know, you have to go to a safe zone now. Please leave. You're about to die in 2 minutes. Thank you. Bye-bye. Right? And then they will go so either they will get the Druze, they will make, not Jews, Druze, right? So like in Majd al-Shams, they will get the Druze in Sweden to basically secede and become their own country, which partitions Syria and accomplishes the same goal of weakening Syria, and then maybe make a Kurdish, you know, Kurdistan east of the Euphrates, so all of the oil and the crops are gone, and then you have Al-Qaeda controlling the middle part of Syria, and then they've done a Sykes-Picot 2.0 or 3.0 at this point, right? And here you can see them. You can see them coming in, okay, these are the Israelis, and performing these Talmudic rituals on Syrian soil, and they're doing this next to Haramoun, next to Jabal al-Sheikh, and basically, you know, sanctifying the ground before they colonize it, before they steal it. You get the idea. And look how the Syrian, the Free Syrian Army, Al-Qaeda, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, who knows what the hell to call them anymore. Look how they talk about all of this. They're asked by the Times of Israel, are you in contact with Israeli officials? And then basically the rebels, the terrorists didn't say anything, but Israel confirmed that they are. And then here they said to the Times of Israel, so the fact they're talking to an Israeli outlet already is scandalous, right? They said, we are thankful to Israel for its strikes in Lebanon and in Syria, okay? And we hope that after the fall of Bashar al-Assad, Israel will plant a rose in the Syrian garden and will support the Syrian people. I mean, I'm sorry, man. No amount of backside kissing and tongue bathing is going to make the Israelis come and plant roses. You're delusional. You're truly delusional. This is delusional. And going back to the... On the topic of media, today Israeli media were broadcasting from inside of Damascus. Did you hear me correctly? Israeli media were broadcasting from inside the Syrian capital in broad daylight today. Look at this. This is I-24, Israeli channel in Syria, in Damascus.
The thing that is very incredible that all people are very, very happy. In any time of the year, people are happy. For me, it's a very heart beating to be in this area and see all the people who are happy. I have been waiting for a moment like this for all of my life. Most of people's problems in Syria is Bashar al-Assad, nothing else.
I'm free. This is how I feel. I'm free. I'm literally free now. Bashar al-Assad is now out of Syria and will never come. And I want him dead, like every single Syrian in this world. Because we have suffered, and this man must die. Because he went to kill us here in Syria. Every single man in Syria have suffered his rage. So we need him killed right away. Please let this message...
Actually, it's perfect for Israeli television, you know? Not like, oh, we should have a trial and hold this man accountable for his crimes because this is a new day in Syria. It's a democratic country. No. It's like, let's execute him. When do we begin the hangings? It's so perfect for Israeli TV, you know? The level of deranged thinking. Yeah, well done. Well done, really. Just, it really makes you proud, you know? Really reflects so well on Syrians right now. Just...
have suffered his rage. So we need him killed right away. Please let this message be with all the Syrian people in here. Let the Syrian live, please.
What's next for Syria? What happens next?
Syria is going to be a great nation. We hope that, and we need it to be. We need the democracy. Let the American be with us.
Yeah, you know, first we do the executions, then we have the democracy. And I love how he's yelling, I'm free, and he's holding up a flag of when Syria was a French mandate. Yes, that's a colonial flag, which makes this whole thing all the more humiliating. It's like they couldn't even pick a good flag. They went and chose the flag of the so-called First Syrian Republic. You need to understand something. After World War I, when France and Britain carved up the Middle East, they couldn't give people independence because that would be, you know, that would be way too democratic. Can't have that. So, you know, they got these mandates through the failed League of Nations to set up protectorates, you know. So basically, like, it's a budding democracy. It's like, you know, we have to police the savages there, boy. We can't have them running their own show. No, that would be far too egregious right now. The white man has to come in and teach these savages how things are done, quite frankly. So that's what France and Britain did. They set up protectorates. It's a colony. It's a colony. Okay, you can call it whatever you want. It's a colony. And that's the flag. So well done. You're so free, you have a French flag in your hand. So you have to love the irony. It's so funny. It's really, it's like someone in handcuffs saying, I just broke out of jail. Yeah, the stupidity is really something to behold. And talking to an Israeli channel, you know, it's like I think one of you said it in the comments, it's like a ritual of humiliation for the Israelis. Please understand this. Please, even if you support the whole revolution, the so-called revolution, even if you, please listen to what I'm telling you. This is a piece of friendly advice. When an Israeli channel shows up and films you like this, they are not doing it because they give a toss about you having democracy or so-called democracy. They are doing it as a humiliation ritual. It's bullying. They are bombing Syria while Israeli jets are bombing Syria while Israeli camera crews film you celebrating, you know, with the bombs in the background. It's like, if that doesn't make you grasp it, nothing will. I can't help you. You know, I'd rather talk to a wall. As a matter of fact, I am. No, but seriously, it's like, you're just never going to get it then. Israel is at war with Syria and has been at war with Syria for 50 years. For 50 years, whether you like it or not. Whether you like it or not. You know, you can hate Bashar al-Assad and you can, you know, want democracy and all these lovely things. Sorry, Israel doesn't care. Israel is at war with Syria. And as a matter of fact, when Israel goes and backs the opposition, well, it's no longer a revolution, is it? It's a hostile takeover. It's a hostile takeover. And when that opposition takes power, the occupation expands. Israel is occupying Syria. This is a fact. There's no way around that. Israel is at war with Syria. This is a fact. And when Israel is celebrating with you as you take power, you should really reflect on your life choices and start asking yourself, why is Netanyahu clapping at the same time? Why is Erdogan happy? Why is America happy? You should really start worrying. You should really, you know, this should be a wake-up moment. Unfortunately, some people just won't get it. Well, it's too late. There's no more military. Syria is defenseless. Syria has lost one of the most important not outposts, but just simply military posts that it has. It's gone. I mean, this land, we're never getting it back. The Golan Heights, just what they had already taken in '67, was a bloody challenge. And now they've taken even more of it, and they're still going to take more of it. They're like 16 kilometers from Damascus now. Let me explain something to you. Do you know why the Israelis haven't advanced all the way? Because they already control Damascus. They don't need to go to Damascus proper. They don't actually need to be, you know, in the Umayyad Mosque or in the Su' al-Hamidiyya. They already run Damascus now. Are you starting to get what I'm telling you? The people, the head-chopping jihadists, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, Jolani, work for Israel. They're in Damascus already. It's just the ones in IDF uniforms are 16 kilometers from Damascus. That's the only difference. Get it? And this is what we lost, yeah? This is the, just look at this, okay? This map, if you have Mount Haramoun, you've got Jabal al-Sheikh, this spot, look at what that offers you. the visual line of sight, okay, is in red, and then the radio, so the sphere of, the radius of the radio is in green, okay? So just, it almost reaches Cyprus, basically. It effectively does reach Cyprus. Do you understand what a strategic disaster it is to have lost this area? Even if Israel didn't destroy a single Syrian jet, even if, Syria was now the perfect democracy, the quintessential democracy on planet Earth, losing this spot on Mount Hadamon, disaster. Absolute disaster. You can oversee the whole bloody Levant from that place. And the Israelis know what they just captured, and they are bloody dancing. They're literally dancing at our funerals. Look at them. And they're posting, this one over here is posting about how, oh, gonna go skiing. Mount Hadamon is ours, accept it. Just, land theft. That's what Zionists do best. And some Syrians are, punch drunk and high on the hubris. Just, what can I say? You can't have a future without sovereignty. Sovereignty is the basis for everything, okay? It's the foundation on which you build everything. Your economy, your foreign policy, your domestic policy, your system of governance. All of it depends on sovereignty. You don't have sovereignty, you have nothing. You don't, even if you are under a dictatorship, you don't even own that dictatorship. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Even if you're occupied, the occupation doesn't belong to you. That's how oppressed you are without sovereignty. You have nothing. You own and will have nothing. And some people are willing to buy a fake illusion of democracy with their sovereignty. And frankly, those people are so stupid. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. Maybe we don't deserve it. Which pains me to say that. Really does. There will be future generations cursing the minute that this crap happened, because they will understand. They will have the hindsight of grasping what it is that Syrians today think was liberation. Not to mention the rest of the region and the rest of the global south. Let's get to that. Let us talk about Iran and how this affects Iran. Thank you again for your donations. We've got some here. I'll just read them to you and then proceed to my thing on Iran. We've got one from Shazia, who says, "Thank you for speaking the truth. May God protect you always." Thank you, much obliged, and likewise. And we've got a contribution from Irene. Thank you, Irene. We've also got another donation here. This is from from Robert. Thank you, Robert. And Mark says, podcasting proudly and hard-hitting on the topic of genocide. Thank you, Mark. And also, Bernadette, thank you for the contribution. Thank you to everybody who's supporting the work that I'm doing and my reporting. I'm very grateful, and also for those who are joining on Patreon, so that I can basically slowly get back to streaming, although again it's difficult with this investigation. Let me continue with the show, although I do owe Cynthia a crab dance. So actually I'll play, everybody give her a round of a warm welcome and a round of applause, and then we'll continue with Iran and how what's just happened in Syria affects the future of Iran.
Clap for that, you stupid bastard.
Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Listen, fuckhead, you fucking crossed the line, claiming I'm the enemy. You got that, you goddamn son of a bitch?
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch.
Good morning.
Sunday morning.
Cut that bitch off!
Thank you for Iron Dome.
Thank you.
والله انتوا كلاب بصراحة يعني. ماشي نشتغل عادي.
We lied, we cheated, we stole.
China.
And you ain't black.
There's always the macro.
And then there's the micro.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
You talking to me?
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'll have 2 number 9s, a number 9 large.
we got him.
Because I have to do it myself. I know it's not.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Disgusting!
She was 12, I was 30, but anyway.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Why attack Sanders?
Wait.
Oh, you're getting nervous, man.
Calm down. It's okay. Okay.
Suck my dick and choke on it. I yield my time. Fuck you.
Okay, let's continue. You guys should be able to see. Okay, sorry, I switched to the wrong one. You should be able to see old scramble brains here, Mr. Netanyahu. And I'll play this video in just a second. Okay, so right, so let's talk about how the events in Syria affect Iran and Iran's future. Frankly speaking, Iran is next on the chopping block. You guys remember that video of General Wesley Clark where he's outlining the plan of the Project for a New American Century for their regime change projects in the region. And, you know, obviously the two toughest nuts to crack on that list were Syria and Iran. Now they've taken care of Syria. It took them decades and decades and decades to do. And by doing that, they've crippled the Palestinian cause, of course. But they're not done, are they? I just showed you, we just went through how destroying Syria and its defenses paves the way and makes it easier for Israeli jets to bomb Iran. Remember, they have to pass over Iraq, of course, but Iraq is itself occupied by the United States. Iraq was demilitarized and, well, rather defanged. You know, much in the same way that Syria just was by the West. So, nevertheless, let me play this video from Netanyahu, and he filmed this on the 12th of December. So this is after they've destroyed Syria, okay? And remember, the day that the Lebanon ceasefire started, what did Netanyahu say then? He said Bashar al-Assad is playing with fire. I mean, you know, the Israelis had issued warnings, quote unquote, or threats, we should actually call them, to Syria many, many times before, right? But that was a tactical, you know, move in order to take the focus away from the genocide in Gaza, give the troops, the Israeli troops in Lebanon, a rest, and then once and for all get rid of Syria in the interests of Israel, Turkey, America, and the West. But now Iran is next on the chopping block.
People of Iran, as we see history unfold before our very eyes, I can only imagine what you're feeling right now. Your oppressors spent over $30 billion supporting Assad in Syria. Today, after only 11 days of fighting, his regime collapsed into the dust. Your oppressors spent billions supporting Hamas in Gaza. Today, their regime lies in ruins. Your oppressors spent over $20 billion supporting Hezbollah in Lebanon. In a matter of weeks, most of Hezbollah's leaders, its rockets, and thousands of its terrorists went up in smoke. The money your oppressors stole from you literally went up in smoke. You must be furious imagining the new roads, schools, hospitals that could have been built with the tens of billions of dollars your dictators wasted backing terrorists who lose over and over and over again. Do you know why Iran's oppressors keep losing? It's not only...
Yeah, because of Western sanctions and because you won't leave the region alone. How about that?
Because they're incompetent and cruel. They are. It's because they seek to conquer other nations, to impose fundamentalist tyranny on the Middle East, on the entire world.
Yeah, Greater Israel is a Teheranian project. Everybody knows that, you know. President Raisi came up with it himself. I mean, the nerve. Look who's talking about conquering other nations. The nerve, honestly. There is no one but America, but the United States, the West and Israel, conquering other nations and colonizing them and stealing their resources. Jesus, he's literally moving into Damascus as he's filming this.
The only thing Israel seeks is to defend our state. But in so doing, we're defending civilization against barbarism. The historic events we witness today are a chain reaction to the pounding of Hamas, the decimation of Hezbollah, the targeting of Nasrallah, the blows we delivered to the Iran regime's axis of terror. And all this came, as President Trump pointed out this week, because of Israel and its fighting success. I want to make clear, Israel wants peace. We want peace with all those who truly want peace with us.
Yeah, Israel, they just want the freedom and the peace to commit genocide and make the Goyim and the Amalek submit to their rule. And they just want to be able to steal gas and resources and Lebensraum, you know, and promised land in peace. Come on. They just want the security to be able to impoverish others. Why do you deny them this right?
And I have no doubt that you, the people of Iran, know this. I know that just as we want peace with you, you want peace with us. But you suffer under the rule of a regime that subjugates you and threatens us. You know what this regime is truly terrified of? It's terrified of you, the people of Iran. And one day...
That's rich coming from a guy who faces weekly protests. I mean, honestly.
I know that. One day this will change. One day Iran will be free. Women, life, freedom, zan, zandagi, azadi. That is the future of Iran. That is the future of peace. And I have no doubt that we will realize that future together a lot sooner than people think. I know, and I believe, we will transform the Middle East into a beacon of prosperity, progress, and peace. Thank you.
All right, so this is where we're at. This is where we're at right now, okay? You guys know I've been covering the nuclear deal for several years now. Iran followed that deal to the letter. Okay, they signed it in 2015, 2016, and Iran did everything, right? They allowed the IAEA inspectors unfettered access to all the facilities. They let them install these tamper-proof seals, cameras, run tests wherever they please, come and go as they please, and of course they are signatories of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the NPT, and of course the additional protocol. Israel has signed neither. Israel has signed neither the NPT nor the ban on chemical weapons. Just so you remember, Israel has an arsenal of nuclear weapons. It has it. And the United States is the only country in history that's used nuclear weapons and on civilians. But the point is that Iran followed the nuclear deal, and it did exactly as agreed, as was pointed out, and it tried to appease the West in exchange for sanctions relief. Okay? Then Donald Trump gets to power, and being the good little Zionist dog that he is, he pulls out of the nuclear deal, which is great for Israel. He reimposes sanctions on Iran, which is great for Israel, and of course the neoconservatives. Excuse me. And then, of course, he kills Soleimani. He kills Abu Mahdi al-Mohandes with the targeted assassination with the drone strike. And then he imposes Caesar Act sanctions on Syria. He moves the embassy from Jerusalem from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He declares as if, it belongs to him, that Jerusalem is Israel's capital, that the Golan Heights, which Israel has stolen from Syria, are Israeli. He does every single thing that the Israelis want because he's a big fat Zionist, and he's actually done more than all the US presidents before him for Israel. Okay, that's how much of a Zionist he is. So Iran did everything, and for a year after Donald Trump pulled out of the nuclear deal, for an entire year, okay, the Iranians are still upholding the nuclear deal as if nothing happened. And they didn't have to do that. It's not a prerequisite in the agreement. They did not have to do that, but they did it anyway to provide the Americans with an off-ramp to allow them to afford them the opportunity to come back into the agreement peacefully without any escalation. Americans didn't care, right? So then afterwards, what happened is that the Israelis blew up the Natanz nuclear facility. They assassinated an Iranian nuclear scientist as well, Mohsen Fakhrizadeh. They did it outside of Tehran. And then the New York Times published a story to glorify it, blah, blah, blah. And the Soleimani assassination happened. And so all of these events, at every turn, the Iranians, they started pulling back, or rather rolling back their commitments to the agreement. Now, the agreement says, under Article 26, 36, and 37, that if the Americans leave and if they reimpose sanctions on Iran, Iran does not have to uphold the deal. It's logical. If you sign a contract with someone and they rip it up, you're not bound to the contract anymore, are you? How can you rip up a deal and then say that, oh, you still got to follow it even though I left? I mean, that's the American position. That is how nonsensical the Americans are. But even despite that, the Iranians are still in the nuclear deal to this day, but they rolled back the commitments in the sense that they were supposed to keep the limit at 3.67%. Okay, so enrich uranium only up to 3.67%, and that's commonly the amount that you need for civilian purposes, right? Just for nuclear energy. Now, if you want to build a nuclear bomb, you need 90% enriched uranium, and you need several kilograms worth of that stuff in order to build a single bomb. But then the Iranians said, okay, no, we're going to enrich up to 20% now. You can come back to the deal and lift the sanctions and we'll stop. But the Americans don't listen. And then they went up to 60%, okay? And even up until 3 weeks ago, the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, Rafael Grossi, he goes to Tehran and he meets with the Iranians, and they give him a tour of Fordow, they give him a tour of Natanz. These are the two largest nuclear sites. And they showed him that, look, we can stop enriching uranium at 60%. We can stop right now. And they didn't just say that. They showed him that they've taken the first step towards that goal. In a technical capacity, and just like kind of as an act of good faith, to show that, look, you can go back and tell the Americans and Britain and the UK and France and Germany that we can really do this if they're willing to play ball, if they're willing to respect the deal and, go back to maybe, not normalizing ties, but just to have a détente, okay? A thawing of ties, of relations. And he goes back. Of course, that message is transmitted, and the Iranians even said that they'll allow new IAEA inspectors to come because they had blacklisted some of them as one of these measures where they're pulling away from their commitments. It was always tit for tat, tit for tat. The Iranians never escalated. They always responded, and only in a very, very limited manner. They never went, okay, let's build a bomb. They never did that. And they have a religious decree against it, as a matter of fact. What happens afterwards? They have a board of governors meeting at the IAEA in the UN in Vienna, and that's basically a quarterly meeting. You have the 35 members in it, and half of the board, just over half, abstained. But this motion still passed where they condemned Iran. They said, you have to explain these particles that we found. We want you to lift your ban where you've designated these inspectors, IAEA inspectors, as you blacklisted them. We want you to do this and that, but never, of course, against the Americans, right? They never condemned the United States, just Iran. So Iran was like, okay, you know what? Screw this. And the next morning, literally the next morning, they fired up these brand new centrifuges and just kept on going, enriching uranium at 60%. Okay? So all of this to say that, and of course this goes without saying, they tried to bring the United States back into the nuclear deal in 2022, and then the Ukraine war started, and the Americans dropped the ball. They didn't want to continue with negotiations and they were this close. It was almost a done deal. They had a draft ready and everything, but the Americans dropped the ball. My point here is that I've covered this closely, and I've seen all of the stuff, the ups and downs. At every single point, what happened is that the Iranians were ready to negotiate, they were ready to de-escalate, they were ready to do anything to get the sanctions lifted, and every single time the West respond with escalation, and Israel responds with escalation. They murder someone, they blow a facility up, they impose sanctions. You can't reason with them. You've just seen what's happened in Gaza, you've just seen what's happened to Lebanon, you've just seen what's happened to Syria. Iran is next. The Israelis have wanted this for a long time, just like they've wanted this with Syria for a long time. Many lawmakers in Iran are now saying, screw this, we need a nuclear bomb. The Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, needs to reverse his religious decree, the fatwa, banning nuclear bombs because they cause mass destruction. And we need to go and just build one. And by the way, Iran can build one very easily because they have some of the best scientists in the world. They've got a young generation of extremely smart people. They're some of the best in STEM and nanotechnology, rocket science. They've got a space program now, you name it, right? And the jump that you need from 60% to 90% enriched uranium is much smaller than the jump from 3.67% to 20 or to 60%. So the point is they've already done the hard work. They have that knowledge. They can build it if they want to build it. At this point, given the victories of the genocide axis in the Levant, it would appear as, it would appear that they really don't have any choice but to go for the bomb. If you look at North Korea, the Americans butchered 20% of North Korea's population. They built nuclear bombs as a deterrent. It worked. Now, it's not like, Iran would be destabilizing anything because the Israelis already have nuclear weapons, and look what they do with conventional ones. So if anyone should be disarmed of their nuclear bombs, it's the United States, who are the only country to have ever used them, and they used them against civilians twice. And it's Israel who are committing genocide and who are, the whole country is founded on land grabs and mass murder. So look what they're doing just with normal conventional armaments, never mind nuclear bombs. And they have the Samson option too. They're ready to destroy the whole planet in case it comes to an end case scenario. So it looks like the Iranians at this point in time, with the Americans and the Israelis and the West refusing to back down, they really have no choice but to build a nuclear bomb. And again, I've covered the nuclear deal very closely on the ground. I've seen every single bloody turn. The Iranians try to de-escalate, they try diplomacy, and the response is go to hell. Every time the West are telling them, we don't care. We're going to condemn you. We're going to sanction you. We're going to act like you are the problem and we are angels, and the Americans haven't done anything wrong. The silver lining of Iran, because many in Iran are angry that they ever even entered the nuclear deal, but I'm actually happy they did. You know why? Because at least they tried, and the silver lining is that they can always say, we entered the deal, we followed it to a T. Even when the Americans left, we were still abiding by it to the letter for a whole goddamn year. We're still in the bloody nuclear deal, even after they put sanctions on us, everything. And that proves that the West doesn't respect appeasement or diplomacy, which is sad, which is, of course, a very bad thing. But it's just as a case study, it provides a very interesting example of how, unfortunately, we do not have a diplomatic core. We have a core of bastards who just like escalation. And if anyone is responsible, for Iran building a nuclear bomb as if, it's the end of the world, like Israel having a nuclear bomb isn't cause for concern. But if anyone is responsible for Iran building a nuclear bomb, it's first and foremost Israel and the West, and nobody else. Nobody else. If they are pushed to building one, you can thank Israel and you can thank the West. It's really, they have done everything in their power to make sure that they leave Iran no choice but to build the nuclear bomb. Thank you, AP13, for joining on Patreon. Much obliged, and I'll play your crab dance in a second. Thank you. Also, we've got a donation here from Wanda. Says, people of my political persuasion call this revolution a counter-revolution. Cheers, Richard. My condolences to you and your former country and countrymen. Yeah, it's you could call it that, I suppose. You could call it that. Although Syria had like a long period of instability and so many coups, it's really hard to tell at this point who's counter-revolutioning what. But I of course, your point is well taken. I understand completely what you mean. You know, the revolution was having an anti-Zionist Arab state, or just let's say an Arab state that with sovereignty that stands up for itself, right? That was definitely in that sense. Syria was its political system was a revolution against most of what the region currently is, and most of the world, where they just get crushed by the West and they become client states or vassals. And now, yeah. This is effectively what's happened. They basically, out of sectarian hate and obsession with Bashar al-Assad, they've taken away a bad car and given us a bicycle instead and called that an upgrade. And it's delusional. Like, I don't care anymore. Like, about talking about Bashar al-Assad. I want to know where the country is going now, and they're giving us these nut jobs who support Israel, NATO, Turkey, Qatar. I mean, people who celebrate this got something wrong with, they need to get their heads examined, honestly. Thank you very much, AP13 and Tiffany. I owe you guys crab dance. Let's go. And thank you all for your support. I'm very grateful.
Clap for that, you stupid bastard. Corn Pop was a bad dude, and he ran a bunch of bad boys.
Listen, fuckhead, you have fucking crossed the line, claiming I'm the enemy. You got that, you goddamn son of a bitch?
I don't give a fuck what you think, bitch.
Good morning. Sunday morning.
Cut that bitch off.
Thank you for Iron Dome.
Thank you. والله انت كلاب بصراحة يعني. ماشي نشتغل عادي. We lied, we cheated, we stole.
China.
And you ain't black.
There's always the macro.
And then there's the micro.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
You talking to me?
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'll have 2 number 9s, a number 9 large.
we got him.
Because I have to do it myself. I know it's not.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Disgusting!
She was 12, I was 30, but anyway.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Why you text Sanders? Why? You're getting nervous, man. Calm down. It's okay. Okay.
Suck my dick and choke on it. I yield my time. Fuck you.
All right, guys, thanks very much. Please make sure that you have the bell thing turned on, the whole shtick. Basically, so you get notifications when I upload videos. That's all right? And if you sign up on Substack, you'll get an email when I go live. It's free, and the address is richardmedhurst.substack.com. Very simple. It's just a box. You put in an email and hit subscribe. I don't send you spam. I don't ask you for anything. It's just I made my case and my point quite clearly regarding how the fall of Damascus, the fall of Syria affects the entire region. And remember that when it comes to Syria, Damascus is the oldest extant city on the planet. It's seen all sorts of rulers come and go, all sorts of empires, all sorts of civilizations. Or rather, I think empires is perhaps the more correct term, because maybe we should just, it hasn't changed its fabric, if you know what I mean. But there's clearly a need for a new kind of identity of movement, because look, Pan-Arabism has failed. And we've seen what the West has done to the region, the balkanization. They're trying to further balkanize it. It's perhaps time now for a Levantine identity, for a Levantine unification. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, it doesn't make Syria or the Levant any less Arab. Syria, I mean, is nicknamed the beating heart of Arabism, and it always will be. It always will be the cradle of civilization. It will always be part of the Fertile Crescent. Those attributes will not fade. But perhaps what is needed is a Levantine movement, because look, we're talking about Gaza, Palestine, we're talking about Syria, we're talking about Lebanon. They're all being crushed under the boot of the genocide axis, you know, and it's not stopping. They're not going to stop now. They're going to be sucking out those resources. They're going to be occupying and oppressing it for a long time. And this is untenable. This is absolutely unacceptable and untenable. These are foreign invaders, occupiers, whether we're talking about, the hordes that have come from Qatar or from Turkey, or, does it matter that the country has been invaded and overtaken by foreign interests, and that this is simply inexcusable. It's been sold out, and I'm talking about the whole region. I'm talking about Greater Syria. You remember in the old days, up until 150 years ago, Gaza was Syria. If you read, old travel logs and great travelers who would pass through the region, the last villages in Syria that was Gaza, one of the last towns before you get to Egypt. And Syria and Egypt have been one country many times in history, but Egypt is now. It would be a miracle if you would get Lebanon, Palestine, and Syria back into one. Never mind adding Egypt to the mix. Maybe one day, inshallah. But you know what I mean. There's a vacuum now that needs to be filled. There needs to be a new anti-imperialist movement, a new political movement that can fill the vacuum left by the Ba'ath Party, the Pan-Arab movement, and all these things. The last and to fix Sykes-Picot, right? But that's a discussion for another time. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for joining, and please make sure you donate if you can, and that you subscribe on Substack. It's completely free. It's just so you know when I go live that you get an email. Thanks again for tuning in, guys. Take care. Thank you. Ma'as salam.